Welcome to episode 58 of Think Big with Michael Zellner. All positive, no politics. My guest today is Josey Scott Sappington. Josey is a four-time Grammy-nominated singer and songwriter from Memphis, Tennessee. He was the lead singer of the band BlackBone in the early 90s. Josey collaborated with Chad Kroeger of Nickelback on the Spider-Man movie theme song Hero in 2002, and he is best known for being the former lead singer of the band Saliva. Welcome to the show, Josey.
What's up, Michael Z? How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great, man.
Good to
Great
see
to be
you
with
again.
you. Good to see you.
Tell us something interesting about yourself that most people don't know.
That's a good question. People know that I love being a father. But I really do truly love spending time with my children. My favorite part, something they probably don't know about me, is my favorite part of the day is picking my girls up from school.
That's so nice.
I love sitting in the car line. I don't know what it is. I mean, obviously it's because I'm picking up my babies, but I love the whole ritual. I get in the car and go sit in the car line, and I hang. I've got it actually right here. I hang the little sign up that has their names on it, and I go through the line, and the principal calls them out on the walkie-talkies, and then I'm just like I'm like a little kid, because I see them come out of the school and my heart starts to pound, and then they bring them to the car and they get in, and I just ask them about their day, and ask them if they have any homework, and do they want to go to the park or go get a snack with daddy or something. And I actually did that today. That's what I was doing right before I came to be with you. Was I picked the girls up from school and took them to Wendy's, and I got a salad and got them a couple of Frosties, and brought them home. That's something that people probably don't know about me, is picking my girls up. It's a big deal.
Great story there. Josey, you said, quote, "This song was the song that used to make my heart skip a beat back in 6th grade in Brighton, Tennessee at Brighton Elementary in Mrs. Whitmer's class. Still does," unquote. And you were referring to the song "One More Night" by Phil Collins. What does that song mean to you?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. That was my first crush. It was a little girl named Kim Keller. And I went to Brighton Elementary. My teacher was Mrs. Whitmer. Her son, Justin Whitmer, is actually a dear friend of mine, and we've recently reconnected on Facebook, which I love that about Facebook. I hate that it's like, I call it the redneck newspaper. But I love that it reconnects you with people that you haven't seen in years, and it can be a very useful tool as far as that is concerned. And but yeah, Kim Keller she was the first girl that made my heart like skip a beat. And I had this little picture of her. It was her softball picture. She's all wound up with her bat. And I used to just sit and stare at it and listen to One More Night by Phil Collins. And I still, to this day, gosh, what a great song. It has such a great shelf life. And I was debating with somebody the other day. We were debating the best saxophone solo in a song. And One More Night was definitely top 10 in that debate. I mean, it was like Turn the Page by by Bob Seger, and then my pick for that list was One More Night by Phil Collins. I just really love that song. I love any song that evokes emotion like that, and that's one of those that really does that for me. Really hits my buttons. My feet hits me in my feels, as kids say today.
Yeah, exactly. What are some of your best memories of your time in high school at Overton?
Oh, another good question. Oh man. The fact that it was an optional school and they encouraged us to be as free artistically as we cared to be. They nurtured that part of the students, whether you were a painter or a singer or, you played an instrument. I loved the fact that they weren't just an optional school by name. They were an optional school by the actions that they took with the students. And I went to school with Eric Gales, one of the greatest guitar players that ever strummed a guitar. Him and his whole family. I remember when we would have talent shows every year, I would look forward to the talent show at Overton because the talent was just so thick there. And watching Eric was so good, Michael, that he would perform at the talent show. He wasn't a competitor because he was so far and away above anything we could do at the time, that he just would perform in between acts. He'd do like a guitar solo in between one, and then he'd sing a couple songs in between another one, and then he got up and did a drum solo. My God, dude, he took two drum sets and connected them into one big drum set. And he, like Robert Sweet from Striper, he would do a drum solo on this kit and then turn around and do a drum solo on this kit. And then he would get up and do a drum roll that went from one end of the stage to the other one on all these toms he had lined up. He was incredible to watch. And I remember they had a jazz band every afternoon hour for like the last half of the school day. They would start jamming at like, I think around like right after lunch. They would start jamming at like 12:30 or 1 o'clock, and they would play until the bell rung. And I would be in between classes, and I was late for class a lot of times because I would just run to the jazz room and just stand there and watch Eric Gales, and was just in awe of his amazing level of talent and dedication and the practice he would put in. And he just put in the hours and put in the work, and was just so charismatic and so amazing. He was like Jimi Hendrix, man. I never saw Jimi Hendrix, but from what I've seen on television and films about Jimi Hendrix, he had that sort of aura to me, like Dave Chappelle, or no, not Dave Chappelle, but Charlie Murphy said about Rick James. He had that aura, that orange aura.
Yeah.
He had that. And just to behold his talent is a great memory of mine. And he was really supportive of cats like me, that because my mother used to sort of rib me about, she said, you wake up at 5 a.m. to do your hair and put your outfit on, and you look like you're going on stage when you go to school. And I said, well, Mom, I kind of am going on stage when I go to school. And when we would see Eric in the hallways, he'd be like, what's up, man? He could have been mean to us, and he could have picked on us because we were beneath him, certainly, as far as his talent went, but he didn't. He was very kind, and he taught me. That's another thing that I learned from Eric Gales, was he taught me humility, and taught me that you could be this talented, but you didn't have to be an a-hole about it. That you could be kind and still be sweet to people. And that's probably my favorite memory from high school, is getting to see Eric Gales and his talent, and getting to play on stage. I was a drummer at the time and played with a band of guys, and we did Love and Touch and Squeezing by Journey. Was actually one of the first songs I ever played on stage live in Memphis. Was at the Overton Talent Show that we had every year. But yeah, great memories from Overton.
I never knew that Eric played the drums.
Oh yeah, his entire family, like all of his brothers and uncles and all of them, every one of them can play drums, guitar, bass. They could they could literally do 3 songs and throw the instrument to the other one, and the other one catch the other instrument, and literally change instruments mid-show. They're that good.
Amazing.
Yeah, just incredible.
So after high school, you were one of the founding members of the band BlackBone. You know, the band was, you know, big in the Memphis club scene. And in 1995, you guys released your album Homegrown. You know, and back then you could only get the album through mail order and in stores, and how times have definitely changed.
Yeah.
One of your fans, which I believe you guys called your fans boners, said this of the band, quote, "Heavy, but with a great Southern groove, one of the best live bands I have ever seen, and I have seen hundreds. You can definitely feel their energy on this, though. A must-have disc," unquote. By the way, you can still get that Homegrown on Amazon. I didn't know if you knew that or not. It's still on there.
I did not know that. Wow.
How did the band get started, and what did you like most about that album?
The band got started in my mother's garage on Green Dolphin Street in East Memphis. We used to hang out. There were 2 girls. I think they were named Stacy and Tracy, and we used to go to their apartment. They were 2 girls that hung out at Rascals, and everybody would flock to Rascals, which Rascals on Overton Square doesn't exist anymore, but it was above
Yosemite Sam's, right?
Sam's. Yeah, Yosemite Sam's. It was upstairs from Yosemite Sam's, and I used to sneak in there to see bands, and somehow ended up cool with the door guy. I don't know how, and became friends with the owner. Eventually would become friends with the owner at the time, but used to sneak into Rascals, and these 2 chicks, Stacy and Tracy, used to hang out at Rascals, and we would all end up back at their apartments. I can't remember the apartments, but just all kinds of Memphis musicians, from Randy Mike to these guys from a death metal band used to come up from Arkansas, Living Sacrifice, and guys from Tora Tora, guys from Roxy Blue, just a hodgepodge of Memphis musicians used to hang out at these girls' apartment. And I was hanging out there a lot, and I had just switched from drums to, I was in a band called Human Zoo, that never, I think we played one time at Rascals and were never to be heard from again. But I played drums for that band, and I finally just looked at the blisters on my hands and the blood dripping off my elbows, and I was like, what the hell am I doing? I can sing, damn it. I'm gonna be a singer. So from that moment forward, I switched gears and decided to be a singer. I had actually tried out to play drums for Metalsmith, and like, I thought I had made it when I auditioned for Metalsmith, because they were like a huge Memphis band at the time, and they were packing the daisy, and they were more of a death metal band, and that really wasn't my bag, but I loved them. They were really cool guys and everything, and I thought I had the gig, and then their old drummer came back and I didn't have the gig, and I was just heartbroken. And like I said, the Human Zoo thing broke up, so I decided to switch gears and I was hanging out at the Stacy and Tracy's apartment with all the Memphis musicians, and met Rudy Forrester, was a lead guitar player that used to hang out there as well. And he used to hang out with this guy named Tony Smith, that was the original drummer. And then Shane Hutchison, we called him Shane Dog. He was in a band called Cast of Nasties, and he ended up being the rhythm guitar player. And then this gorgeous guy named Cheese, that looked like Sebastian Bach. He was just gorgeous. And I'm not gay or anything, but this guy was stunning. He looked like a male model or something. And he ended up wanting to play bass. So I said, well, hey man, I got my mother's garage over on Green Dolphin, in East Memphis. If you guys want to, if you guys want to get together over there, that's a spot we could practice. And the next thing you know, we got us a little crappy PA, and Shane Dog brought his guitar amps over there, and Rudy brought his guitar amps over there, and Cheese brought his bass amp over there. And then Tony West, was playing drum, or not Tony West, Tony Smith was playing drums. I have another friend named Tony West. I get confused, but Tony Smith was playing drums, and we started to jam, and it really, started to sound really cool. Like we had something. It was right around the time Rage Against the Machine's first album came out, which was a life-changing album for me. Like I had found what I was looking for when Rage Against the Machine came out. I was like, whatever these dudes are, I want to do this. This is my thing. This is my bag. Because I was always interested in somehow trying to marry hip hop and rock together in some kind of way. And the only example we had of that in those days, as you know, was Aerosmith and Run DMC, doing Walk This Way. And, I love groups like the Beastie Boys and Run DMC and NWA, and was so into like Project Pat and 3-6 Mafia and Al Capone and stuff like that. But at the same time, loved AC/DC and, Motley Crue and Kiss and stuff like that, and Black Sabbath and Ozzy. And I wanted to somehow marry those styles, but I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it. Well, when I heard Rage Against the Machine, I was like, that's how you do it. And so we sort of started, and Rudy and Shane and Tony were into more like Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Pearl Jam. They were into more of the Seattle grunge type thing, where at the time I was into like the hip hop thing. So I brought that kind of flavor to the mix. And then eventually Shane left the band, and Tony left the band, and I had become friends with, was always a huge fan of Chris Dabaldo, and had went to see him play in high school with my best friend William Gray, who is the lead singer of Smash Hound, or Slam Hound. Sorry, Slam Hound. Me and William Gray were, William Carroll we were best friends in high school, and we used to just stalk Modern Immaturity. Like we would stalk them at their shows at who was the guy that used to run for mayor that was the insane man that
Prince Mongo?
Prince Mongo.
Yeah.
We used to go to Mongo's and see Modern Immaturity, and then they would play the Daisy, and we would go see Modern Immaturity there, with like Tora Tora and David Flexer's band. What were they called? Tracy Rubel and David Flexer had a band. Oh shit, what were they called? I can't remember the name of their band. But would go see all those Memphis bands, and was a huge fan of Chris Dabaldo's, like I said. And he went from Modern Immaturity, and then he formed a new band with this guy named Cass. They formed the Hit Squad, and we used to go see Hit Squad. Do you remember them?
Mm-mm.
So they were like a modern day, like they were like Bon Jovi. You know, they were talented and had songs, and like they were. I thought they were going to make it big for sure. Like, and used to go see them. And like I said, was still a big fan of Chris Dabaldo's. And then I had run into Chris Dabaldo at Night Moves around the time Shane parted ways with BlackBone. And I told the guys in the band, I said, I got one more ace, and I'm gonna play it. I said, I got Chris Dabaldo. I'm gonna call him, and he'll come out and audition or jam with us for the rhythm guitar slot. And the next thing you know, Chris Dabaldo was in the band. And then, like I said, Tony Smith left the band, and we actually recruited a drummer from out of state. I don't know how we did that. I think we ran an ad or something in some kind of publication, and he latched onto it. This cat named Trent Anderson that lived up in Cleveland, Ohio. And so we bought him a bus ticket, and he came down to Memphis. And I remember the night he arrived, I said, man, we got to do something to really test this guy's nuts. Like we got to do something to really shake him right from the beginning to see if he's cool or not. You know what I mean? So we were all sitting around smoking a little, and we were like thinking about what can we do, and we were like, well, we could take him out for drinks, or we could do this or that. And we're really kind of hitting the wall. And then I said, dude, I got it. I said, let's all go to like a thrift store and all show up to pick him up from the bus station in dresses. I said, this dude is either going to get back on that bus and go home, or he's going to be like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So we went to the Greyhound bus station to pick Trent up, all of us wearing cheap little, and we were skinny as a rail back then because we were all starving to death. None of us were eating right, and none of us had money. So we went to the local Goodwill and got these old, just hideous 1960s, 1970s looking dresses. And the three of us showed up to pick him up in dresses, and he thought it was hilarious. And that's how we knew that was our guy. He didn't recoil at the sight of 3 or 4 long-haired tattooed guys that were obviously stoned, wearing Goodwill dresses or Salvation Army dresses to pick him up from the bus station. So he was our guy. And so we continued to develop our sound in my mother's garage. And then Trent was really good at, getting a hold of club owners. And, he said, we should go out of town and play shows. And we were like, how do we do that? We barely get a show here at the Daisy, and we prepare for that for months. How are we going to go out on the road and do shows for these people we've never laid eyes on and that we don't know or whatever? And he goes, I know how to network, and I can get on the phone and call these people. and he was a big network, and that was his deal, is he liked to be on the phone, and none of us liked that kind of stuff, but he did like that kind of communication and everything. So he got us in touch with club owners in different cities, and we started to go play Vino's pizzeria in Little Rock, and then we would go over to Nashville and play shows there, and then we would I think we went up as far as Chicago. We would take road trips, and I still to this day don't know how in the world we did that when we had no vehicle, no money, no mechanic, no driver, none of these things. And that was around the time I had just met my best friend, who's still my best friend and my assistant, Scott Willis. And he worked for BlackBone, worked for Saliva, and still works for me to this day. And we've been friends now for 25 years, almost 30 years. And I met him at, I don't know if you remember, Ace Frehley played at
Yes.
Night Moves.
Yes.
We met that night. I met my best friend that night, and we just started to hang out with each other, and he became our driver and like our one little roadie that we took on the road with us, and he was an early believer in BlackBone, and he drove we got this crappy Chevy van, and we found some, awful, dangerous trailer that we sort of refurbished with plywood. And I think we must have pooled our money together or something and did it that way, or maybe begged for money from our parents or something. I don't know how we did it. I can't remember exactly how we pulled that off, but we always seemed to make it to our gigs on time. And we booked a lot of shows out of state, and we went and played Indiana and Chicago, and we would go play the Indiana College at the Fighting Illini. We would go play there, and we would go play in Indianapolis at the Indianapolis 500, and we played some really cool gigs. Well, in Indianapolis, we met a guy up there that had a label called Surf Records, and he wanted to sign us to like a little speculation deal or whatever, and ended up being really close friends with him. He was in a band called Ma Kelly. He was the keyboard player for a band called Ma Kelly, and he had a little home studio back before home studios were on everybody's laptop. This guy had like a soundboard and microphones set up, and you could actually record a proper album with his equipment. And he was all into that technology and everything. We didn't know a thing about any of that, but he sort of took us under his wing. And by then we had developed a pretty good set list of songs. We had probably 15 or 20 songs. So we loaded up all our equipment and drove up to Indianapolis, and I think we did a couple of shows there regionally, and then we jumped in the studio and recorded that first BlackBone album, Homegrown. And I loved that record. I thought, that's how I learned how to record and how to be produced and how to let someone help you craft your songs and help you get the ideas out of you and sort of purge yourself of your ideas. And there was a lot of cooks in the kitchen in BlackBone, and you had to learn how to do that. It wasn't necessarily the Josey show or the Rudy show or the Trent show or the Cheese show or the Chris Dabaldo show, so we kind of had to learn how to work together, and that lasted for as long as it possibly could. And but yeah, I loved recording that record with those guys, and I don't regret it at all. I call it rock and roll boot camp for me, because what was coming next was going to be the real deal. So
We'll talk about what's coming next. After playing with BlackBone for a few years, you pretty much just figured out that things weren't going to work out, long term with the band. And
right.
at the time, former Roxy Blue, and obviously he's Roxy Blue lead singer again. Todd Poole was forming a new band with you, and you guys brought in Wayne Skinny and Dave Novotny, and the last member I believe to join was Chris Dabaldo. And coming up with the name Saliva, you said, quote, "I was thinking in that respect that saliva is a household word and you can't mispronounce it. When we started playing around town to Saliva, the reactions to the name weren't very good. That just gave us more impetus to stick a foot in their ass, and the name Saliva really became an identity. I'm really pleased with the way Saliva rolls out of the tongue, no pun intended, that it was sexual and provocative was even better as opposed to something political," unquote. You knew you had a great sound there, but the fact that, some people didn't like the name, maybe made fun of a little bit, must have just given you guys a little bit of extra motivation and made you even more determined to make it big.
Yeah. We've never been able to win with a band name. Me personally, just, you can't win with these band names. BlackBone, they called us Blackstone and Backbone, and they could not pronounce it right to save their lives. So I thought, with this new band, I'm going to pick a provocative name that's already a household word, like Sprite, or, I don't know, Head and Shoulders or something. I'm going to pick something that's already a household word that you cannot F up. So we had our last big blowout with BlackBone, and we'd all gotten into, it became physical, and we were fighting like cats and dogs. And that was a lesson. That was a hard lesson that I had to learn about how to get along with people, and how to be in a 5-way marriage, because any way you slice it, it is a 5-way marriage. You have to, any of these bands that have had any kind of longevity, there's even books about it that talk about, just like in marriage, you hit that 5-year mark, and that's usually when bands implode, because that's when everybody's peccadillos sort of come out of the woodwork. You find out what you can stand and what you can't stand about each other, and you learn how to compromise that or not. And it was or not for BlackBone, unfortunately. And we were all young, and I understand it now. At the time, I was very jaded and cynical about it, and I was like, F these guys, and I'm gonna go do my own thing, and blah blah blah. And it was a learning experience. Like I said, I eventually began to call it the rock and roll boot camp, because that's exactly what it was. It was rock and roll college for me, and for Chris. And so I remember riding home. We had, at the height of what happened with BlackBone, we had bought this old Baptist church bus from one of the churches in Memphis, and we had gutted it and built sort of these makeshift bunks inside the bus. And it was terrible and dangerous, and I don't know how we did not get killed. We couldn't afford it, and we certainly couldn't maintain it. That's the one thing we didn't think about, was we paid X amount of dollars for this bus, and then pulled our money together and gutted it, and went to the local hardware store and bought new plywood and 2x4s to build these makeshift bunks inside this bus. And we did really good with it for for a while, but we weren't prepared for it to, I don't know, have a flat tire or break down or any of that stuff, because my dad was actually a truck driver, and he volunteered, or somehow we suckered him into coming out and being our bus driver for a while, which I would not take those memories back for anything, because I really got to spend some good quality time with my father out there on the road with BlackBone. And so riding home on that last, we had went out to Los Angeles and played a showcase out there on the Sunset Strip, which again, we thought we had made it because we went, you know, to the Sunset Strip and played a show. And, you know, that was the big time, for God's sakes, to us. But we had fought the whole way and things just weren't working out. And we were on our way home. And I remember, I'll never forget leaning against those old glass windows on the way home to Memphis. And I had just gotten in a big fight with the guys, and you know, I was sort of licking my wounds and just staring out the bus window and going, oh my God, I cannot wait to get the freaking heck out of here. And, you know, we were ready to go 5 different directions. And like Bon Jovi said, we were ready to go 5 different directions with 5 middle fingers in the air at each other. But like I said, we were young and we were learning. But I was thinking on the way home, I was like, I'm going to come up with a new band name right now, right here. And I'm going to come back to Memphis with a plan. And like I said, I had become so cynical, and so it had made me meaner than I wanted to be. It had turned me into something that I didn't want myself to become. It had just made me, you know, rock and roll and wanting to be a musician and wanting to be a professional musician was something that I coveted, and something that I honed and worked on for years and years, and prepared, you know, called myself preparing myself for that next level, or preparing myself for that life. And seeing that it just didn't work out. It just didn't work out. You know, proves your worst fears. It just proves that maybe you're not good enough, or you're not strong enough, or you're not talented enough, or you don't have it, or you don't have this or that. And so I was coming home with all those insecurities, but I was down, but I wasn't out by any means. I had picked myself up and dusted myself off and gotten back on the horse before, and I was going to do it again. And so I remember leaning against that glass on the way home and just trying to think of a band name. And I was like, I got to come up with something that's already a household word. And I loved the name Nirvana because it was just such a good 3-syllable word, Nirvana. And I was like, Saliva, Nirvana, Saliva. I was like, that's interesting. You know, that could be interesting. You know, I thought, you know, in my sick, twisted mind, it was, you know, I guess provocative and just flat foot gross enough to be disgusting to some, which was perfect. And you can't have sexual intercourse without it. And I said that to a college guy that I was doing an interview for one time, and he goes, well, what do you mean? And I said, dude, have you ever had sex? But so it just fit all the criteria for me. It was going to probably gross some people out. It was going to be a sexual thing to others. And then it was going to be something that people went, well, what is Saliva? I want to know what this is. Who is this band, and why in the hell would they call themselves Saliva? And it just posed several questions. Well, at the time I didn't mind the red flags that it also sent up. But anyway, I think I told Rudy Forrester, and I told Chris Dabaldo, about my plans. I was like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to form my own band, and it's going to be called Saliva. And I didn't say this, but I was going to unrepentantly come home and steal every badass that I knew out of every great band that I could find in Memphis. And in my opinion, that would have been, Wayne Sweeney was in TNA. He was somebody that, like I said earlier, that I used to sneak into Rascals to see play, and used to sneak into, I don't know how the hell I got past Anita, but I used to sneak into Stage Stop to see Wayne Sweeney play with TNA at Stage Stop. And Wayne Sweeney was like Randy Rhoads to us. He was the quintessential badass lead guitar player. So I definitely wanted him, and I definitely wanted to find the most badass drummer I could. I had Paul Crosby in mind at the time, but he was in another band at the time called Mother Crush, and another band called 10 Pound Sledge. So I couldn't quite get to him yet. I wanted to always play with Dave Novotny because I thought he was this dark, he had this long black hair, and he was just this dark, brooding guy that listened to a lot of Tool, and he was just, the perfect bass player, really talented guy, great songwriter. And me and Dabaldo were a package deal. We were always a package deal, moving from BlackBone into Saliva. We knew we were going together into that. So around 1996, early 96, BlackBone imploded. We finally got home and got off that dangerous bus. I immediately went and found Wayne Sweeney. He was in the studio with Todd Poole at the time, and they were doing, Todd had left Roxy Blue and was doing a project called Sugar Ditch, I think. And he was doing another band called Something Jesus. Not Screaming Jesus. I can't remember what it was called, but then he was doing the project at the time he was doing was called Sugar Ditch, and went into the studio where they were over at Rock and Share Records with Nico. It was a Greek guy that owned the studio over there named Nico, and went over and sort of talked my way past the door and somehow got into the studio where Todd and Wayne were. And I just told them, I said, look, man, I've been depressed, and I locked myself in my bedroom at my mother's house over on Green Dolphin, and just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote songs on this little guitar that I had. I had dated this chick that left a guitar at my house. Is the only reason I had a guitar. And I'm left-handed, so I had to teach myself how to play upside down and backwards, strung backwards and upside down. So I sort of makeshift taught myself how to play guitar. And my dad had taught me a little bit about playing guitar when I was little. And but being left-handed, it was difficult to figure out how to chord. Eventually I figured it out, but locked myself in my bedroom, wrote like 30 songs, and then went into the studio where Wayne Sweeney was playing with Todd. And I was like, hey, I'm putting a band together. I know you guys are recording some demos right now. And I said, I don't want to interrupt you. I said, but I'm putting a new band together. And I said, it's going to be awesome. And I'm going to take over Memphis, and I'm going to get a record deal. And if I don't get a record deal, then you know, you can kill me later or something like that. And then Todd, I thought Todd was only going to be a lead singer. I don't even think I knew that he played drums at the time. And he said, well, I can play drums. And I was like, you're going to play drums? I said, you're a lead singer, bro. I said, you're never going to want to step down. I was like, you're Todd Poole, man. You're this amazing front man. He was like, you know, Memphis's version of David Lee Roth.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was like, you're never going to want to step back and play drums behind me. Plus, that would make me really nervous to know that I had to be your front man. How in the world am I going to be the front man for this guy who could do acrobatic splits in the air like David Lee Roth? And he was like, no, man, I want to play drums. He goes, it'll be cool. It'll be fun. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So that came together really quickly. We went over to Todd's house, and me and Wayne Sweeney and Todd jammed together that first night. And actually, Matt Dees, another Memphis bass player, was there. And I had always wanted to jam with Matt Dees. I was a huge fan of Matt Dees. And he was there for the first night of the sort of just hodgepodge jam rehearsal thing that we had, you know. And we played a couple of, I think we played, you know, some, we played a couple of Van Halen songs. We played like some Roxy songs. We played a couple of BlackBone songs just to get ourselves warmed up. And then we started to, you know, write some ideas and everything. And then the next night when we came back, Matt Dees was vanished. He was gone. And he had told somebody, he had said, you know, if Todd's not going to be the singer, then I'm not interested, which broke my heart, you know, because I was like, well, what am I, freaking chopped liver over here? But and later on, after Saliva, after we were doing our thing, Matt actually came back and played on a version of Simple Man that we did for a movie soundtrack with Paul Ebersol. So I got to bring things full circle with Matt Dees, and being such a huge fan of his, and he was a dear friend of mine as well. So got to sort of bring that home and put closure to that situation. But the next night that Matt Dees didn't show up, the very next night Dave Novotny showed up, and we wrote Flight 800 the first night he was there. So we immediately just became a four-piece band right then and there. And we actually got ready and we wrote like 10 or 12 songs really fast, and we played Crossroads, which was like the big Memphis music festival for local acts and local labels that wanted to come out and see bands, and national labels too would come out and see different bands, like the Nixons are a big band that used to play, and just all kinds of bands from all over the nation would flock to Memphis and play. It was kind of like our version of South by Southwest. And after we did our first show at the Daisy, I was like, Chris Dabaldo was in the front row of that show. And I was like, man, we got to get Chris Dabaldo in this band. I said, because me and him are a package deal, man. He's got to come play for this band. So next thing you know, we got Chris in the band, and it was just, after that, it was magical. It was just magical after that, and just started spitting out songs. We wrote, Chris wrote After Me and Beg, and all these different songs just came together real fast after that. And then we went into the studio over there at Rockin' Chair Records and did that first Black album, the one we call the Black album or the Saliva album, or the fans call it the Saliva album, and didn't have any distribution. We just, it was back when you would still drive around to all the Cats records and Pop Tunes, and we would sort of give them consignment of our CDs. We would consign a bunch of our CDs to their stores, and we started to sell a few in the stores, a couple hundred CDs, and then we were just selling them on Beale Street, man. I remember when 3-6 Mafia used to be pulled up right beside us, and they had a Lexus by then. They were making big money by then, and they were selling their CDs on walking up and down Beale Street. And then we would walk up and down Beale Street and sell Saliva CDs. So we sort of got to come up together. But great memories with Todd being the original drummer of Saliva, and that those first writing sessions that we had. And then 1997 came along, and I remember it was just a weird year, man. One of my favorite fashion designers was murdered. Gianni Versace was murdered that year, and I knew it was just a bad omen. It was like 2020 when Kobe Bryant died. I was just like, oh, this is gonna be bad, dude. The first few days of January in 2020, that's what 1997 was like for me, because it just started off with Gianni Versace being murdered, and then the next thing you know, Princess Di's killed in a horrific car crash in a tunnel in Paris, and I'm just like, what is happening? And then Chris Dabaldo was married at the time to this woman named Tina Adams, who invited me to go on vacation in Florida, and I got to go to a place that I would have never been able to afford back then, and she took us to Don Shula's golf and beach resort in Miami, or actually in Hollywood Beach, Florida, and I got to have a nice little vacation. And I came home and my father died, man. And that was, to this day, it's hard to even imagine or talk about, but he was really close with BlackBone. He had been our bus driver, like I said earlier, and was my biggest fan and was very supportive of my career. And, the guys in Saliva at the time were so supportive of me, going to the funeral. And by then we were showcasing for record labels, and we actually had a showcase with Atlantic Records that Friday night. And my dad died on a Tuesday, and I had to go down to Mississippi and go to the funeral, and it was just horrible, painful stuff, because my dad was only 50 years old. My dad was the same age I am now, and was just really unexpected. And but the guys were really supportive of me, and I came back from the funeral, and Todd was like, we want to do what you want to do. If you want to take some time off, we'll take some time off. Whatever you want to do, brother. And I was like, I want to practice. I want to get back in the rehearsal room, and I want to do what I love, which has always been the answer to any of my problems, is music. And so we got right back to putting our nose to the grindstone, and we went right back into the rehearsal space there at Todd Poole's house, and got ready for the showcase that we had with Atlantic Records on that coming Friday.
With this, a few months of you guys playing, you guys were selected out of 117 bands to play in a local showcase. You probably refer to that. Went back on January 24th of 1997, and you won. A few weeks later, you go to Austin Regional Showcase, and you won. And then February 22nd, you head to New York City for the national finals, and you'll finish second. I think Saving Ferris won. And, you know, but at that point in time, you guys had only played 6 shows out together. I mean, that's phenomenal. Did you expect that kind of success quickly?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, we had only been together. We had only been a band for like 3 or 4 months. But that's one thing that I learned from Todd and from Wayne was the economy of songwriting. They really taught me how to, with BlackBone, songs would take a week to learn a song, and then we'd move on to another song or another idea. But with Todd, there was just he had a great ability and to arrange the economy of songwriting. It was just he knew how to, and maybe it's the fact that we all kind of have a touch of ADD or whatever, attention deficit disorder, so we're able to move on to ideas really quickly. But we would write 3 songs in one night, so we were spitting out ideas just really, really fast when Todd was in the band. And I learned so much about how to write songs and how songs were crafted, and to not be afraid to step up and show my ideas. And I didn't really have that freedom in BlackBone, because like I said, we were all still very young and still learning how to be in a 5-way marriage that wasn't necessarily working out, and I think there was always there was a thing. I mean, if I'm being 100% honest with you, and I've never said this in an interview because it's something that's really personal and private to me, but I think in BlackBone, there was always this underlying sort of bullying that we did to each other. That was, you always knew that was part of the mix, if you will. That there was, it was sort of like that Leonard Skinner thing when people talk about Ronnie Van Zant. He was this amazing, giving, wonderful person, but at the same time, they didn't know when he was going to just drop down and beat the hell out of somebody, or when it was like Oasis, like you didn't know when the guitar player and the singer were going to lock horns and just fight right there in front of everybody. And I think being in Saliva took that out of the equation for me, and that was something that was very important to me, was to be in an environment where I felt safe. To be in an environment where I felt like it was okay to disagree, and to be in an environment where I felt like it was okay to not necessarily agree with everybody's viewpoint, and we could talk it through, and we could there was a dialogue between each member, where we could just work. We always seemed to be able to work it out. And with BlackBone, there was always that volatility, if you will, that just was underlying sort of dog you didn't want to mess with on the porch all the time, and that wasn't cool. That's not a cool relationship to be in. And that's not a cool place to be in any kind of relationship. I don't think that's appropriate. And I've tried to carry that with me into each band situation or musician situation that I've been in, whether it's been with, writing Hero with Chad Kruger to, I worked with this band recently called Silent Theory, where I wrote a couple of verses on a song that I had the pleasure of them involving me with. I learned how to take that out of the equation and to never let that be just how to be professional. I learned from watching Todd and from watching Wayne Sweeney and from watching Chris Dabaldo and watching Dave Novotny. I think we learned from each other, and I certainly learned from them how to get along and how to realize that I was in a safe place. And I think maybe that was the whole point in my father's passing, was that was a place where they could have been like, okay, well, we're sorry that your dad died, but we need you to, come back and do blah, blah, blah. And they were not like that. They were like, man, how long a time you need to take the time, we can cancel or reschedule these shows, or we'll do what we need to do. We know your heart is broken, and that we were just there for each other. We were brothers for each other. And, that's something that we said we were in BlackBone, but it never really, I think it sounded good on paper, but it was something that never really came to fruition with BlackBone. And like I said, there was always that underlying Leonard Skinner thing with BlackBone that didn't feel safe, didn't feel right. It didn't feel succinct. You know what I mean? It just didn't feel flush, as my dad would say. And I was happy to see that part come out of it, that bullying, danger aspect. I was glad to see that part go.
I had Todd on my podcast, recently in the last few months, and he shared with me, a story that happened to you guys when you were in New York City on top of the Empire State Building. It's a pretty amazing story. And, what happened with your mom was with you guys and everything. If you would share that, because it's a really good story.
Yeah. So I had never been to New York City, and I was just chomping at the bit to see everything, smell everything, eat everything, just do everything in New York City. I remember we flew into Newark Airport, and if you've ever flown into New York City, you can either fly into Newark or fly into LaGuardia, and we flew into Newark, so we had to take cabs on the Long Island Expressway into or the New Jersey Turnpike into New York City. And I remember rolling the cab window down and just smelling the wonderful food and just the smell of that city. It just broke my heart, because I had waited so long to, make it to New York City. Like Sinatra says, if you can make it there, you'll make it anywhere. You know what I mean? And New York City is like the quintessential American city. It's like probably when people mention, like when you mention France, what's the first city you mention is Paris, and when you mention the United States, the first city you think of is New York City. So being in New York was such a big deal to me, and I know to Chris Dabaldo as well, and Todd had been there several times, but I know it was a big deal for him to return to New York City, and for Wayne Sweeney and Dave as well. And I was just so excited, and I got to take my mother with me because we had tickets. Part of winning your way to the Nationals was getting to physically go to the Grammys. So I got the opportunity to take my mother with me, and I was really excited about that. So we got to be there for Grammy week leading up to the actual Grammy broadcast at Madison Square Garden. So getting to participate in Grammy Week, we got to also go see all the tourist traps, as they say, you know, like the Empire State Building and the Statue of Liberty and different things like that. Walked up on Fifth Avenue and seen all the shops in the rich part of town, and went down to Times Square and all the things that any normal person would want to do were they in New York City. And I was dying to take my mother to the Empire State Building, of course. And so we walked over we were like staying on Times Square. So, you know, we were probably 6 or 7 blocks from the Empire State Building. So we walked over to the Empire State Building and took the elevator. We stood in line with all these people. There were a lot of tourists out that day, and we stood in line for the elevator, then went up. I think you went up like 88 floors, and then you had to get off that elevator and get on another elevator that went up the final tall part, the last little extension of the tallest part of the building. And it was sort of just like the Eiffel Tower. You had to go up the big part and then get off and get on another elevator and go up the skinnier part. But we finally made our way up to the mezzanine, as they call it, the top floor of the Empire State Building. And we walked around. Oh, and my friend Booer was there. He was the bass player for Mother Crush at the time. He was there with me in New York City. And he went with me and my mother. So he can tell this story too. He can probably tell it better than I can. And Scott Willis was there, my best friend. And so we're walking around taking pictures, and my mother's taking pictures of us, and we're taking pictures of her. And we're sort of looking downtown at the Twin Towers, and we're just fascinated by the view up there. It's just unbelievable from the top of the Empire State Building. So we're taking all kinds of pictures. And then my mother had to use the bathroom. She said, "Son, you're going to have to find me a bathroom. I've got to use the bathroom." I said, "Okay." So like any good Southern boy, I'm running around trying to find my mother a bathroom, and finally found on the top mezzanine part, you could walk around, but there was a little section of stairs that went down sort of back into the guts of the building, and then you could walk back to where the bank of elevators were. Well, right there to the left and to the right was bathrooms. And so I walked my mother down from the mezzanine, went down the stairs, and I said, "Mom, the bathrooms are right over here. I'm going to take you over here and we'll use the bathroom." And I will never forget this, Michael, as long as I live. My mother, and this is what I mean when I say in Click, Click, Boom, when I say, "Why is my mother always right?" is because she looked at the bathroom after I sought out this bathroom for her and showed her where it was. I said, "The bathroom's right here, Mama. I'll take you in here to use the bathroom, and I'll stand here at the door and wait on you to come back." And she stood there and she looked at that sign and she looked at that door, and she just got this, she's pierced her eyes, you know, like an old gunfighter or something. And she just looked at that door and she said, "No, you know what? I'm gonna wait." And I said, "Mom, I walked around here and found you a bathroom." I said, "You got to use the bathroom. Go ahead and go to the bathroom." She said, "No, son, I'm going to wait. I can wait. I'm going to wait till we get down to the lobby." I said, "Okay, suit yourself." And so we stood in line, and there was about probably 10 people in front of us for the elevator. Made it back to the bank of elevators, got on the elevator doors closed. We start going down. And I don't know what happened, But on the elevator ride down, it sounded like, I don't know, it sounded like all hell broke loose, and there was a bunch of screaming, but it seemed like the screaming faded away as we went down. As we descended, the sound got further away from us, and I could tell that whatever was going on above us at that point. So we got closer to the lobby. Doors open. We step off the elevator, and now all hell has broke loose in the lobby, and people are running and going in different directions. So I grabbed my mother's hand, and I thought the building was coming. Like, I thought the building was crashing down, or it was an earthquake, or I didn't know what was happening, but I knew something bad. I just felt in my gut. I was like, something bad is happening, man. So I grabbed my mother's hand and started running out of the building, and finally made it out onto the sidewalk in front of the Empire State Building. And there's fire trucks and cop cars just going, like sliding up, like Dukes of Hazzard style, dude. And I'm just like, what the hell is happening? And ambulances, fire trucks, cop cars coming from every direction. And you could hear them coming from the north, south, east, and west of the Empire State Building, just descending on that building. So again, I grabbed my mom's hand and I said, Mom, we need to get the hell out of here. I said, because something bad is happening. I said, I don't know what's happening, but it's not good. So I grabbed her hand and bolted back to our hotel, which was about 6 blocks away. And finally, scared to death, finally made it. It felt like that walk took an eternity. But I know it probably took about 3 or 4 minutes for us to walk that 6 blocks, because I was skedaddling, as we say in the South, with my mother. And finally got back to our hotel, got back up to our room, turned the TV on, and the TV was like shooting at the Empire State Building. And we were like, what? So it turns out that while we were walking past that bathroom, and we stopped, and I asked my mom to use that bathroom, and she said, no, I think I'm going to wait. And then we got on the elevator and started to go down. We had just missed by seconds somebody in the bathroom, which was a unisex bathroom, started shooting, just shooting random people and screaming something about, I can't remember. They were screaming something about Egyptians or something. I don't know what I can't remember exactly. So I don't want to speculate, but I know it was something to do with Egypt or something like that. And they had shot 2 or 3 people in the bathroom. Then the person with the gun stepped outside of the bathroom and shot 3 more people. And I immediately started calling rooms, checking everybody's rooms, making sure Wayne Sweeney was okay, making sure Christy was okay, making sure Booer was okay, making sure Scott was okay, making sure Dave was okay, and Todd. And then started calling Save Ferris's room, making sure they were okay, and then calling the other band. I think they were from Cleveland, making sure they were okay. And I think somebody that was working on the show, like one of the technicians or something, was injured in the shooting. But I think everybody made it out alive. But yeah, it was a shooting. On the one freaking time I tried to take my poor mother to the Empire State Building, there was a shooting on the mezzanine. And yeah, me and Booer are still very dear friends, and we were talking about that the other day on Facebook about the shooting at the Empire State Building on Grammy week.
You know, I'm a big believer in the spirit world, and that we have angels with us and watching over us. And I don't know who those angels were they were with your mom that day when she was staring at that sign, trying to decide whether or not she was going to go in to make the decision not to.
Yeah. She's always had this, I don't know how to explain it. She's always had this superpower, I call it, but she calls it the knowing, whatever that means. And whatever that knowing is, told her that something bad was going to happen, or made her not want to use that bathroom, because this was a woman that when she said she had to use the bathroom, she had to use the bathroom right then. And, you know, you best be looking for her a bathroom. And even after I'd found the woman a bathroom, she looked at it and said, you know what? I think I'm all right. I'm going to wait. And I was just astonished that she would turn down a ready-made bathroom, but she sure did. And I'm so thankful that she did, because I probably lived, and she probably lived, and some of the people dearest to me probably lived, because she made that decision.
Yep. Strong decision there. You know, the self-entitled album, you know, talk about Saliva, was released in August of 97 on Rocking Chair. And you guys did really well with that, you know, just selling it. That you sold over 10,000 copies. You started getting attention from major labels like you talked about. And, you know, a few years later, you know, Every 6 Seconds, the first major albums were released on Island Records in 2001. 2 big hits come from that album, the songs You're Diseased and Click, Click, Boom. You guys get a ton of airplay all over the nation with those songs and are now mainstream. What was that like, the first, you know, being national for the first time, you know, that tour for you, and just being able to play it all over the radio?
Well, I mean, it was amazing, of course, because we had been turned down by every record label that there was. I would learn to have a hate relationship with the word pass, because we met our manager, Brian Coleman, who would go on to manage us and a band called Default, and another band called Theory of the Dead Man. And he also managed Nickelback. And we actually, something else I learned from BlackBone was how to build a team, how that you needed a manager first and a lawyer second, and then a record label third. I thought you just needed a record label. I thought you just went for the deal. Well, I like I called it earlier, rock and roll boot camp or rock and roll college. I took those lessons into Saliva with me. And because we had played our version of South by Southwest, that Crossroads Memphis Music Festival, we had procured Brian Coleman from that show at the Omni New Daisy there on Beale Street. Every good thing that ever happened to me came from playing the Daisy on Beale Street. I'm very proud to say that Mike Glenn and the Glenn family, even working with his son now, Mikey Glenn, Mikey Jr., every good thing that's ever happened to me in Memphis eventually came from the New Daisy and came from Beale Street. But we got Brian Coleman, and I had also learned that any good manager is not going to ask you to sign a contract. And, you know, like Dave Chappelle says, all these contracts have all this verbiage in it about they control your name and your likeness in perpetuity throughout the universe. I mean, these are words I had never heard before, and had no idea how to explain them to myself, and had to hire someone to explain them to me. But like I said, I learned from those mistakes in BlackBone how to put together a relationship with a manager, and how he wouldn't want me to sign a contract. And if he did, then that wasn't the right manager. and Brian Coleman came up and said, "Hey, I believe in this band. I believe that you guys can go all the way. I believe that I can help you get there. And hey, I will do it on a handshake. And if I can't get it done in a year, no hard feelings. We can part ways. I'll go my way. You can go yours, and no hard feelings." So I knew that was our guy. And plus I had a really good, settled, discerning feeling about him. I have like my mother, sometimes I have that gift of spiritual discernment with people, and I just knew that he was the right guy. So got on board with Brian Coleman on a handshake. Brian led us on to Jim Zumwalt, who became our attorney out of Nashville, who taught us how to read contracts and what contracts meant and what the language meant and all these different things. But I remember, I'll never forget, Jim Zumwalt said one time, he said, "I think these boys are snake bit," because we had been passed on, as they say, by every record label out there. I think we had auditioned for and been courted by, not just auditioned for, but been literally courted by Atlantic Records, Epic Records, RCA Records, Interscope Records, Capitol Records, all these different labels, and every single one of them would fly us out in style and put us up in these beautiful hotels and take us out to these ridiculously expensive dinners that we had never seen hide nor hair of. And then we would play these big, well-to-do showcases for a bunch of their team of suits to stand there with their arms crossed, and just for them to have the pleasure of telling us at the end of the night that we weren't good enough. So when we had been passed on by every label, even down to the week my father died, we, like I said earlier, we showcased for Atlantic Records. And oh gosh, I'll never forget what the guy, I'll leave his name out of it, but the guy from Atlantic Records said he felt sorry for me and that we ought to give the kid a record deal just because his dad died. And that got back to me, and it just broke my heart to hear that. I thought it was really kind of just not very sensitive thing to say to someone who just lost their father. But it's not show friends, it's show business. And so like I said, we were turned down by every record label at least twice. And then Island Def Jam came along, and they said, they expressed that they were interested, and they got on a phone call with Brian Coleman and us in Memphis. We got on this group phone call, which was a big deal back then. To talk, everybody be talking on one line was like modern technology back then. Now it's people do it on the daily, but we were all talking on the phone, and their head of A&R was saying, we're interested in you guys. We just want to know who the hell is this band called Saliva that has sold 10,000 copies of their own record and are getting airplay on 92.9 WMFS there in Memphis, and are making money. We just want to know who the hell these guys are that have gotten this organized this fast. And he said, we're interested in bringing you guys. We're going to bring you guys out to New York City. We're going to rent a rehearsal space or one of those sound stages, and we're going to put you guys up in a hotel, and we're going to set you up, and we're going to bring our people out to see you. And I said, whoa. Wait just a minute. I said, we had just been turned down again by Capitol Records. They called it Capitol Cold. Oh, I'll never forget those words. And I had become just cynical enough to speak up for myself. And I said, wait a minute, sir. I said, with all due respect, we're not coming to New York City for you to rent some soundstage for us to travel all the way up to New York, be put up in hotels. You take us out to some fancy dinner. All of your suits come in there and stand with folded arms just to tell us we aren't good enough. I said, I'm not going to put myself through that, and I'm not going to put my band through that again. I said, now, if you would like to come to Memphis and come see us on Beale Street at the Omni New Daisy, and I said, we will undoubtedly pack that joint out, and we will rock that mother effing place to the floor. And I promise it will be worth the trip. And then at the end of that night, then you can tell me I'm not good enough. And there was this long silence on the phone. It's another thing I'll never forget. It felt like an eternity, but it couldn't have been 30, 40, probably less. It was probably like 15 or 20 seconds, but God, it felt like an eternity. And I heard him finally speak up. He goes, okay, we can do that. And I went, because after I said it, I knew why I said it, and I knew the vitriol that led me to say it. But even after I said it, I was like, oh shit, what have I done said? What have I done did? What have I said? And after that long 20 or 25 seconds, he said, yeah, we can do that. And I was like, oh God, thank the Lord. Thank God that's okay, because I thought I had either just made my career or ruined my career. But I think those guys being New York guys, I think they respected that in the long run, that we finally spoke up for ourselves. And, because I wasn't lying, what I said wasn't not true. That's probably how it would have went down. So they scheduled a trip to come out to Memphis, and the head of A&R brought who would be our future A&R guy with him, Rob Stevenson. He brought him with him out to the show at the Daisy, and we killed it that night. Just couldn't have went better. Just owned it. And then they went back, and I think they came out one more time, and they brought Leor the next time, and they came and seen us again. And then after that time, they were like, okay, we're going to sign you guys. It's a yes. And I was just like, this cannot be happening, man. This is the last record company on the edge of the face of the earth that we have finally attracted enough to say yes. I cannot believe, I couldn't even believe it. You know what I mean? It was just, it was so surreal to be told no. And I remember my mother told me one time, she said, son, if I had to suffer the kind of rejection you had suffered, she said, I would mop up the floors at a peep show before I would suffer the rejection that you boys have had to go through. And I was like, well, that's gross, Mom, but I'll take your word for it. So they started going back and forth with the contracts. And I remember talking to Jim Zumwalt and Brian Coleman on the phone, and they were like, "Yeah, we just got the contracts in. We're gonna mark up what we don't like and what you guys don't like, and then we're gonna send it back to them." And I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute!" I was like, "No, we'll just sign it." He goes, "No, calm down, Josey. Breathe. This is how this happens. They come with their idea of what they want the contract to be. Then I would later find out what red marking was, and they'll red mark it, and then they will send it back. They will make some changes, and they'll send it back to us, and then we'll probably make a few other housekeeping changes, and then we'll send it back to them, and then they'll send it back to us." And I learned, that was another big lesson that I had never learned, was that you could negotiate, that was okay. You didn't have to just jump and pounce on the first contract that you got. Because were I left to my own devices, I would have signed away my mother's house if they would have wanted me to.
Right.
But you live and you learn.
And you bet on yourself, and it paid off.
That's right. That's right.
You know, the movie Spider-Man, starring Tobey Maguire, came out in 2002, and you joined forces, with Chad Kroeger of Nickelback for the theme song Hero. It won the best video from a film on the MTV Music Awards in 2003. How was that experience like for you?
It was absolutely amazing. I got to take my son Cody with me. It was his 11th birthday that night. So I got to surprise him and take him to New York with me. And also Michael Jackson's birthday, August 29th, was Cody's 11th birthday. And Michael Jackson's birthday was also August 29th. So just a magical night. I got to sit right behind Christina Aguilera on the third row at the show. And I remember looking over at my son during the show, and Christina Aguilera is like 6 inches from my chest. And I looked down the row at my son and I said, "Hey, Cody," I said, "watch this." And I leaned up and I just went. We thought that was so funny that I leaned up and smelled Christina Aguilera, and she smelled amazing, by the way. And I got to get up in between commercial breaks and take him over and introduce him to Eminem and POD and different people like Busta Rhymes. And Cody was a big hip hop fan, so I got to introduce him to a lot of different hip hop artists that he really loved. And it was just a magical night. Got to bring home that beautiful Moon Man award, as you said earlier, for best song from a soundtrack. And it was just meant to be. The most fun of it was getting to spend it with my son, though, and share it with my son, and watching him go down the red carpet and do press right beside me, and he was answering interview questions and I was answering interview questions. It was really amazing to watch.
In 2002, Saliva also released, Back Into Your System. It was your third album, and the song Always was a huge success. And you guys also had the hit Rest in Pieces. It was co-written by, James Michael and Nikki Sixx of Motley Crue. And then in 2003, you guys went on tour opening up for Kiss and Aerosmith. First of all, what was it like to write a song with Nikki Sixx and then to have the opportunity to tour with two of the most successful rock bands of all time?
I mean, you try to make sure what I call the video cameras behind your eyes are working. And like me and you talked about before we went on, about remembering things from your life. Those are some just magical memories, you know, that I tried to hang on to. Nikki Sixx was an idol of mine from the get-go. I mean, the first rock and roll record I think I owned was Kiss Destroyer, and Shout at the Devil was the other album that I had, because I wasn't really allowed to have rock and roll records when I was a kid. So I pretty much had to depend on Casey Kasem's American Top 40, which I also loved. I'm a total raised on radio type kid. But yeah, was a huge Nikki Sixx fan. Used to sleep out at Ticketmaster there in Memphis with my best friend in high school, William Gray, Carol Gray, to buy concert tickets, and went to see the Girls tour, and went to see the Dr. Feelgood tour. So to go see that man play in my hometown and idolize him from a fan perspective, and then get to meet him and spend time with him, and then to get to do a song with him, was just, it just felt like I was on another planet. Just didn't seem real. I literally told him when I got to hang out with him, I said, look, I said, please don't think I'm weird, because I cannot stop staring at you. Like, I could not, like, he's another one of those guys that just had such a thick aura, just a huge, beautiful presence. Like, Nikki Sixx is one of those guys that when he walks in the room, you can hear the forks hitting the plates. Like when he walks into a restaurant or something, like people, like everything stops. And so to get to hang out with him was just a huge, huge blessing and a privilege. And then interesting story how the Kiss Aerosmith thing happened. That was another thing that it was kind of like the Grammy showcase thing at the beginning of Saliva's career. We'd only been together, and like you said earlier, we'd only played 6 shows, and we kind of heard about this contest, this Grammy band battle of the bands. We threw a tape in it and filled out a contract, and like shot something from half court, and it just kept going in. And we were just as shocked as anybody else, you know. And with the Kiss Aerosmith thing, we had heard on the road with Saliva that, hey, they're taking press packages from all the different bands. You know, everybody's throwing their hat in the ring for this tour. Do you guys want to throw your hat in the ring for the Kiss Aerosmith tour? I was like, hell yes, dude. Of course. I would like give a pint of blood or two to do that tour, dude. Like, I don't know what I wouldn't do, you know? So we got together a package and sent it to the offices of Kiss and Aerosmith, and then went back on the road, and we kind of forgot about it. And later on, I heard the story of what happened was they whittled it down to 2 acts. They were going to go with us or Billy Idol. And they were in, the way I imagine it in my mind, that when I was told the story, they were in some kind of boardroom talking about the tour and how it was going to happen, because apparently there was a big rumble that happened back in the 70s with Kiss and Aerosmith, and a couple of their roadies got into a knife fight. And I checked this out. It's in Paul Stanley's book, and it's actually in one of the Aerosmith guys' books too, about this knife fight that happened back in the 70s. And they swore they'd never tour with each other ever again. So that's why you've never seen a Kiss Aerosmith tour. And I don't know what happened. Usually money happens, but I'm sure money happened. But they somehow renegotiated and decided to go back on tour with each other. But I heard that if the people that put their name in the hat, it physically came down to us or Billy Idol. And they were, Gene Simmons was saying, or do we want to do a retro tour to where, you know, it's Kiss, Aerosmith, and Billy Idol, which I thought would have been an awesome tour to see. They said, or we can do a new thing with a new band, and it can be Kiss, Aerosmith, and Saliva. And Gene Simmons' son happened to be there that day. And I want to kiss this boy when I see him, because he ran up to his daddy and said, Dad, please pick Saliva. I love Saliva. They're awesome. They got this new song called Click, Click, Boom and Your Disease, and started naming off all these songs. So that brought their attention to Saliva. But because I was wondering what in the hell helped us beat out Billy Idol. How do you beat out Billy Idol?
Right.
You know what I mean? Billy Idol is incredible. You know what I mean? And I as soon as I heard it was down to us or Billy Idol, I was like, oh, Billy Idol's going to get this. Y'all might as well not even get your heart broke. I said to the other four of them, I was like, don't even get y'all's heart broke. Billy Idol's going to win this round. There ain't no, you know, it's not a choice, dude. They're going to pick Billy Idol. Trust me. And I was wrong. Something happened in that meeting, and Gene Simmons' son, who was about, I guess, 12 or 13, he was just at that perfect age to where he ran up to his daddy and he said, Dad, please let it be Saliva. And the rest is history.
He was supposed to be there that day. Synchronicity, man. It was supposed to
That's
happen.
it.
Absolutely.
That's it.
So, Josey, a woman named Kendra from Claremore, Oklahoma came into your life. The night you met her, you said to her, quote, I've crossed oceans of time to find you, unquote. Tell us about that night.
All right. You're going to get me crying here. It was 2003, and we were on tour throughout the Midwest, and we're going through Oklahoma and headed out west. And we traditionally usually do a sound check before we go on tour, because we don't like to wake up in the daylight hours. We were like vampires. We like to sleep until the sun goes down, and then we get up and start our day. And in that particular town in Tulsa, we were playing a place called the Voodoo Theater or the Voodoo Lounge that night. No, it was the Voodoo Theater here in Tulsa, and it doesn't exist anymore. It's the Oklahoma Theater now. But at the time it was called the Voodoo Theater. And I remember we had Scotty Ross was our tour manager at the time. And this is one of those old 70s guys who worked for like Journey and Van Halen in their prime and Poison in their prime. And one of those big time tour managers who's just respected all over the globe. Like, we would pull up to a hotel and people would run up and open Scotty Ross's door and go, right this way, Mr. Ross. Like, he was that big time. And he woke us up that day, and it was still daylight outside. And he goes, get up, boys. You got to get up. He was like a father to us. We loved and respected him so much. And he goes, you boys got to get up. You got to learn the song Rest in Pieces. They're playing it on the radio here in Tulsa. And I know you mother effers haven't played that song since you recorded it. So you're going to have to get up and come rehearse this song. He didn't want us to sound check as much as he wanted us to wake up and rehearse. So we were like all groggy, like, man, Scotty, come on, man. So we all got up and got dressed and went in the daylight hours to reluctantly play Rest in Pieces for the first time since we had recorded the album version of it. And we got into the venue, and it's this big old theater, and we're on stage checking mics and everything, and getting ready to run through the song. And out of nowhere, these two girls walk in the back of the theater, beyond where the seats are, just started walking through the back of that theater. And I saw this woman for the first time, and it just, I don't know, it just felt like angels started singing or something when I saw this woman. And I remember I leaned over to Wayne Sweeney and I said, do you see that girl? And he goes, and he looked and he goes, which one? I said, which one, Wayne? The only one. He goes, dude, there's two girls. I said, I couldn't even see the other girl. Like, I don't know. I couldn't see the other girl. And I said, I've got to go speak to that woman. I said, she is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life, man. I said, I've got to go talk to her. So, I mean, she was so beautiful. I literally turned around and faced the band and sang Rest in Pieces because I was too intimidated to turn around and face her and sing facing the crowd or whatever, or where the crowd would be. And I just got all nervous about it, and, like I'm getting now. And so we went back on the bus, and I was pacing back and forth. I'm pacing. And I said, man, I got to go talk to that girl. I got to go talk to that girl. If I don't, I feel in my body, if I don't go talk to that girl, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. If I do not go talk to her, Wayne, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. And he goes, well, go on. There ain't nobody stopping you. Go talk to her. So I'm like, no, I can't go in there. I can't just go in there. He goes, well, which one are you going to do, dude? Are you going to regret it for the rest of your life, or are you going to go talk to her? I don't care. Just do one of them. Choose. So I'm, still pacing back and forth, trying to figure out what to do. And I asked Scotty Ross, I said, is there a runner here today? Is there somebody, here that can take us to the store? And they had a runner, and this little girl came up on the bus, and she said, I can take you anywhere you need to go, and so she said, you guys need to go to Walmart or something like that. I was like, yeah, let's go to Walmart. I'll get her like a card, or I don't know, something, because I have no game with women, dude. I have absolutely no game with women when it comes to that sort of thing. And people laugh when I say that, and they're like, well, you're the lead singer of Saliva, man. You ought to be able to get any chick you want. And I mean, I guess, if I was a certain kind of guy, I would be able to manipulate that situation or parlay that situation into something like that. But I just wasn't that type of guy, man. You know what I mean? I was really shy and, you know, I don't know what to say around beautiful women, dude. I couldn't even face the girl to sing the song because I was so scared. So I was like, okay, let's go to Walmart. I'll see if I can get her like a card or I don't know. So I walk into the Walmart and they have this beautiful florist section. And I'm like, I'm going to get her some flowers. I was like, that's probably kind of forward for me to do, but I'm going to get her some flowers, man. That's going to be the icebreaker. That's going to be my big icebreaker is I'm going to get this girl some flowers. So I went up to the flower case and they had like different configurations of flowers, and you know, they had tulips and daisies and you know, carnations and different kinds of flowers. And then they had these groups of 3 roses. And I was like, I'm going to get her 3 roses. I was like, again, I know you're only supposed to get red roses mean love, you know what I mean? And that's kind of, that's a little forward for me to get, but I just felt led to get the 3 roses. So I bought the 3 roses. I had them all made up with baby's breath and everything, and had them, you know, wrapped up in this beautiful colored paper, and then had that put into a vase, and started back to the Voodoo Theater to give this woman these flowers. So when we pull back up to the bus, it's starting, the sun is just starting to go down, and there's people lined up around the theater, dude. There's like probably 200 or 300 people in line for this show already. And I got back on the bus and I'm like, how in the hell am I going to get in the building? I got to walk through these people, and I don't want to not say anything to these people because they're going to see that it's me, and they're going to be pissed if I don't stop and take pictures and sign autographs, and rightly so.
Sure.
I said, how am I going to get into the building? Because we never came off, or we like you said, we try to keep some type of mystery about the show or whatever before we would go out. And I was like, there ain't no way I'm gonna be able to walk through there. So I'm faced with conundrum number 2 of how am I gonna get through this crowd? So Big John, our security guy at the time, goes, I'll take you in there. He's like this big old Marine dude or whatever. He goes, I'll walk you in there, Josey. He goes, just pull your hoodie up and pull the string down and tie, you know, your hoodie down around your face and walk into the venue, and I'll cover you up and we'll get you in there or whatever. So I put these flowers under my hoodie and pull my jacket up over my face and pull the strings up over my face, and I bolt off the bus. Well, everybody immediately knew that it was me. So, you know, people started to make some noise, like they're whispering to each other, and I could hear them whispering around me and everything. And I'm trying to get through and go through the side door real quick. Well, made it through the side door. John gets me into the building. The door shuts behind me. And then I'm like, okay, now conundrum number 3. Now I've got to have the balls to walk up to this woman with these flowers.
Right.
So I pulled these scruffy looking flowers out from under my hoodie and try to arrange them as best I can. And she was about 100 yards from the door, and God knows I counted every one of them. And I finally made it over to where she was, and I was just talking to myself the whole time, and I was like, Joseph, you have got to walk up to this woman and open your mouth and say human words when you get to her. Don't just walk up here and hand her these flowers and walk off, because she's going to think you're a crazy person. So I walked up, and God, Michael, it took every freaking physical bone in my body to say, I think I said, hi, my name's Josey. I said, these are for you. And I said, I said, I just wanted to tell you, if nobody else has told you this today, you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my whole life. And I just wanted to tell you that. And I handed her the flowers. Well, I expected her to be like, I don't know, 65 or 70% of the women that I ever told anything like that. I expected her to be like, whatever rock and roll boy, whatever rock star, whatever man whore, that's what I expected to hear. And she was just this beautiful, gorgeous angel. And she turned and looked at me and she said, you are the sweetest thing you're the sweetest thing ever. And she said, thank you so much. And she smiled this big, beautiful smile. And she was even more beautiful up close than she was from 300 yards away, like she was on the stage. And we started talking from that moment. I mean, we just felt comfortable with each other, and we started talking from that moment forward. And we talked until I had to leave and go get ready for the show. Then I went up and did the show. Then I did the meet and greet after the show, and then went back to her and I said, please don't leave. And went back up to her after the show, and we talked for another 4 or 5 hours. Just talked.
Wow.
Just never stopped talking. And I'm somebody who can't talk to people. And we just naturally never ran out of stuff to talk about. And to this day, all the way up to a while ago, we always have just never ran out of things to talk about. We just always, I've never felt around Kendra like, gee, there's really nothing else to say. I think I'll just not talk for a while, or, whatever. Like, if we're in the same room, we truly are soulmates. And we truly are husband and wife. And we truly have been through hell and back together. And we truly are best friends. I think you have to be, I think to make it, especially in this world, in this day and age, you have to be best friends, and you have to like the other person, because love will carry you through anything. You know what I mean? But you have to like the person, and we truly like each other. You know what I mean? And we always have a good time. We totally get each other's point of view. And we could not be any more different. Like, I love seafood, and I will literally eat anything. I'm an omnivore. I will eat escargot, and I will eat caviar, and I will eat snails, and I would eat tadpoles if they had soy sauce and some wasabi, dude. I will eat anything. And she literally will not eat most stuff. Like, she likes what she likes. I tell people at restaurants, I was like, do you have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or fish sticks or like chicken nuggets on the menu? Because that's probably what my wife's going to order. And she's, like I told you earlier, I'm the one that cries at movies. I'm the one that gushes over babies. I'm the one that's sensitive, and I'm a crier, and she is hard as nails. She don't cry over. I think I've seen her cry like 3 times since we've been married. And that was because she was in pain. She's not one of those people that cries because she's sensitive or soft-hearted. We make a joke that she's the guy and I'm the girl.
And she makes fun of you for using chopsticks the incorrect way, trying to eat sushi.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Relentlessly. And that's another thing I think you have to be able to do is you have to be able to make fun of each other. And she just relentlessly makes fun of me. And I think it's priceless and endearing. And and the irony with the 3 roses is we have 3 children. We have a 16-year-old son named Justice that we had in 2 years after we got married in 2000. We met on May 29th, 2003. A year later to the day, got married at Graceland in Memphis on May 29th, 2004. We had Justice in 2006, and he's 16 now. Then when I left the band in 2010, we had Jordan in 2011. And then 3 years later, we had Jolie in 2014. 3 roses, 3 children.
You know, that was the next thing I was going to talk about. May 29th, 2004, you get married at Graceland. I was, fortunate enough to be there and share that day with you guys and with a lot of people that we have friends in common. I think I probably know some of the reasons why you chose Graceland, but the audience might not know. What made you choose Graceland for your wedding?
Oh, gosh. Growing up in a musical family, my dad was a preacher, and my mother was a preacher's wife. And for the first 8 years of my life, we were really involved in the church. And like I said, I wasn't allowed to have like rock records or whatever when I was a kid. So Elvis was about the only music that I could listen to as a little kid. Now, as I grew older, I started to be allowed to listen to like American Top 40 and stuff like that, which I love. American pop radio, and I loved the songwriter that would develop me into, because I wasn't just a heavy metal kid or a rock and roll kid. I was also a soul kid and an R&B kid and a blues kid and a pop kid and new wave and all that stuff, all that great music from the 80s. I grew up, from anything from Phil Collins, like we talked about earlier, to Duran Duran, to the Police, to Toto, to everything. Just every great piece of music that came out from 1982 to now, I've been able to latch onto. But growing up, I tell people, growing up in Memphis, there was 3 kings. There's Jesus, Elvis, and Jerry Lawler. Yeah. So getting married at Graceland, we were actually going to get married at like a golf course at the Tennessee River down at a little town called Pickwick, Tennessee. And we went to the Memphis Grammy event there in Memphis. And at the Grammy event, we ran into Ike Turner and DJ Fontana and Scotty Moore, Elvis's guitar player and drummer. And DJ Fontana, Elvis's drummer, said, "Hey, man, y'all ever thought about getting married at Graceland?" And I said, "Excuse me?" He goes, "You could get married at Graceland." He said, "I know you guys love Elvis." He said, you should just marry her at Graceland. And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing, bro. He goes, no. He goes, they got a little chapel in the woods, and I'll give you the phone number of the lady that runs it over there. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And so next thing you know, we got on the phone with the lady over there at Graceland at the chapel in the woods, and we just switched the wedding over to Graceland and had a magical, unforgettable, as you know, day over there at Graceland.
And it was a great reception afterwards across the street. I remember that too.
Yes, it was. I didn't know that they had bought that property across the street, and that was part of Graceland too. I didn't know that, so that was like a bonus.
Washington Post journalist Dave Weigel said in 2019, quote, when people ask what the early 2000s were like, tell them there was a swaggery rock band called Saliva, unquote. What does it mean to you to hear, people talk about that and the great impact your music had on them?
It just makes me honored and grateful and thankful to have been a part of that scene. To be a part of a national and global music scene like that is just, it just doesn't seem, I mean, you dream of it your whole life, and you say that it's your plan, and you say that that's what you're going to do, and then you accomplish these things, and it just seems surreal. I'm just so thankful and grateful that happened. And this industry is all about songs at the end of the day. I think no matter what your band name is and who your band members are and what you look like and what you perform like, I think that it all comes down to songs. And when we lay our head on the pillow at night, this music will forever be about songs. And it doesn't matter if you're Blink-182 or My Chemical Romance or Saliva or freaking Conway Twitty. It's about songs. People are going to remember songs because like Dick Clark says, songs are the soundtracks to our lives. And I'm just so thankful and so grateful that I was able to be a part of a scene that was a part of somebody's soundtrack to their life.
In 2004, the album Survival of the Sickest was released, and it reached, number 20 on the Billboard 200. And I understand, while you guys were working on that album, you stayed at a place outside of Boston that you didn't like too much. And there's a good story about you waking up in the middle of the night screaming because something happened. If you remember a little bit about that night, if you could share it, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I had always wanted to record there because actually back in the Grammy competition that we were involved in, one of the prizes that you won that Save Ferris won, because they won first place and we won second place at the Nationals, one of the prizes was you got to record at Longview Farms. And I'd always wanted to record there because back in the day, the Jay Giles band had recorded all of their stuff there. They did Freeze Frame and all that stuff that was big back in the early 80s. And Joan Jett and the Blackhearts and Blondie and just all these amazing bands had recorded there. And we were planning on doing Survival there. And we arrived and loaded in all our equipment and got set up. And we were actually using Paul Ebersol, a Memphis producer, on that record. And, he's setting up all his equipment and everything. And we spent the first night there. And I just thought it was this beautiful old farmhouse. It was in the middle of nowhere, up there on a horse farm. It is Longview Farms. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a farm with horses and cattle and everything, and just a beautiful ranch style home, and several bedrooms, and this beautiful library, and all this cool artwork and antiques. And I'm one of those people that I have to feel and touch and go through everything. My grandmother used to call it pilfering. I have to pilfer through everything. So I was downstairs going through all these old books, and I found these old diaries that former people that lived there had written in. And this woman talked about taking a wagon down to the movie theater, this new Cinemaplex that they had never gotten to go to when they were kids, and they saw Gone with the Wind and all these cool little stories that were attached to this house. Well, we were sharing some bedrooms upstairs. I was sharing a bedroom that night with Wayne Sweeney. We had two bedrooms that butted up against each other that were like back-to-back suites, that we were side by side in. And I had a nightmare or something and woke up in the middle of the night, and I went in, and of course Wayne, who never slept, and I don't think in the whole 10 years or whole 15 years I was in the band, but he was awake, and I went in to check on him and see if he was okay. And he's up sitting in the middle of the bed playing his guitar like he always was. And I'm like, man, dude, I was like, man, is this place haunted or something? Because I just feel like an uneasiness here. It's kind of weird, excuse me. And I don't know, it was just a creepy feeling. And so we started, like idiots, we started calling out the ghosts. We were like, all right, if you think you're so bad, why don't you do this? And there was a rocking chair over in the corner. Now, I'm not one of these people that, just wholeheartedly, I'm not into all that, seance and all that mess. But we were calling this spirit or ghost or whatever out. And we were like, well, if you're really here, make that chair over there rock in the corner. And Michael, dude, I'm not lying to you on my children. The chair just starts going. I'm like, oh my God, dude. And I'm like looking at I moved the chair around to make sure there wasn't no strings on it, make sure nobody was messing with us, because I figured it was maybe the other guys trying to spook us or mess with us or something. There was nothing attached to that chair. And literally the next thing out of Wayne Sweeney's mouth was, he said, well, if you're so badass, why don't you make this bed fall? And the bed goes, boom. And the next thing you know, this big old beautiful antique bed, Wayne is sitting in the middle of playing his guitar, and he just stops playing guitar and angrily says, well, if you're so badass, why don't you make this bed fall? And the mattresses went, whoa.
Wow.
And I was like, we need to get the hell out of here, bro. Like tomorrow, like now, like yesterday. And we packed up our stuff and we were out of there, dude. That was not good. Which is crazy, because a couple of years before that, we played at a studio, or recorded at a studio rather, up in Bearsville, New York, at a studio right outside of Woodstock, where they had Woodstock. The little town of Woodstock is another town called Bearsville, and the group, the band, back in the 60s, had built a studio there, and we were recording Back Into Your System at that studio. And the main building had like Studio A, Studio B, and Studio C, but it was surrounded by like a compound of different houses, and one was called the Wolf House, one was called the Moon House, and one was called the Star House. And we were staying, I believe, in the Wolf House, and Rob, I can't remember the guy's name now. The guy named Rob that was in that band. I cannot remember the name of the band, but it was a famous band. I can't remember the name of them. We're staying at
Rob Thomas.
Rob Thomas. What was his band's name?
Oh gosh, you just had to. I thought about it as you said it. I'll remember in a minute. Yeah.
Right. So they're not Seven Mary Three. So Rob Thomas's band is staying over at the Moon House. We're staying at the Wolf House. Well, I had noticed that there was some ghostly type energy there too, but they were friendly, and they had been friendly, and it wasn't a scary situation. I didn't wake up having nightmares, feel no demonic presence or nothing like that. So we were fine. We had noticed it and we're fine with it. We had actually been recording there for probably 2 or 3 weeks when Rob Thomas and them showed up. And they showed up and they were loading their equipment in all day. Like they were loading guitar amps and drums and all kinds of equipment into the studio. And then he was there with his brand new wife. He had recently gotten married and was moving into the Wolf House, or the Moon House, with his wife. And apparently they had woke up in the middle of the night and had some kind of incident happen where the TV came on or something in the middle of the night, and it was like poltergeist. It was like, and then Rob's wife had come downstairs, and one of the other band guys had woke up and heard children's voices out in the backyard. And so they ran out there, and I think they seen children like doing Ring Around the Rosies or something around the well outside in the dead of night. And the next thing you know, they were out of there, dude. They did not record there. They bounced the next day. So that happened to them, and then a year later that happened to us.
Also back in 2004, Kid Rock played at the Pyramid back in March of 2004. And after the show was over, he came back to your house on Elmore, and you guys pulled out a couple of acoustic guitars. That must have been a pretty cool night. Yeah,
that was real cool. And that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. I heard it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
I love these two things that you said. The first one was, quote, "Hey guys, I wanted to spread some love and offer to support to those dealing with addiction and mental health in 2020 and to help raise awareness," unquote. And you also said, quote, "More love is never wrong and never a bad thing. In these trying times, we all need to stick together and love each other and support each other. Together, we will survive. Love you all," unquote. I know that you've had, several things that you've had to deal with regarding, mental health that, in life and things to overcome, as I have too. And it's probably more important now than ever, for people, if they're having issues, to reach out and get that help if they feel they need it. Right.
Absolutely. I had the pleasure, after we moved from Tennessee to Oklahoma, I had the ability to go back to school and take some training to do drug and alcohol counseling in some facilities up here in Tulsa, and was just one of the most wonderful things that I ever did with my life. Just as important to me as rock music and any success that I had with Saliva. I think it's equally as important to have gotten to work with the people that I worked with at a place. I worked at a place here called Grand Lake Mental Health that helps the community with different mental health needs. And then I worked at a place here in Tulsa called 12 and 12 that is an outreach facility for disabled veterans and different people that can't get medical coverage for one reason or another, and are they're able to be provided with a facility to come to if they're ever dealing with drugs or alcohol addiction or any kind of mental illness or anything like depression or anxiety, anything like that. It's something like an outreach program for people that are disenfranchised as far as their medical coverage. So I didn't even know that was a thing. It's starting to be more nationwide now than it was when we first moved here, because it wasn't a thing in Tennessee. I know it is now, but it was already a thing when we moved here. And my cousin, Kendra's cousin, actually said, "You can work in the mental health field if you would like to." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "Well, you can go back to school and get, some trainings and these different aspects of mental health and drug and alcohol training, and you can really have a difference in some people's lives that really need it." And so I went back to school and got the proper certificates and whatever that I needed, and was able to work with these people one-on-one, and was just had the most amazing time with different people, and met a lot of fans in there, that were fans of my music, and got to teach music and show different aspects of music to guys and girls that are going through a really vulnerable time in their life, and like I said, that part of my life has been just as important to me as the Saliva years, because I found out that my rosebud, no pun intended, is giving back. That's my love language, is being able to give back to my community and to uplift other people in my community. Just like the main reason that I wanted to come back and do music now is not for any anything to do with fame or fortune or anything to do with that, but to do with the number one thing I hear from fans is your music helped me get through a time in my life where I I didn't think I was going to make it, or I was going through a bad time with depression or anxiety, or you helped me have the courage to leave an abusive relationship, or you gave me the courage to get sober, or you gave me the courage to reach out and get help for my mental health issues. And that's why I have not been quiet about my struggles with drugs and alcohol, and also with my struggles, even if there wasn't drugs and alcohol, my struggles with mental health as well, because I think there needs to be not just more awareness, but awareness, period, about mental health issues, because not too long ago, it wasn't even a thing. You know what I mean? When I was a kid, if you needed to see a psychiatrist, you were quote unquote crazy, or you were, you needed to be put in a padded room or something, or something ridiculous like that. And now that more awareness is being brought to the mental health community, I'm glad to have gotten to be a part of that.
Quote, I've been studying acting since high school. I took classes in Memphis with Red West, who was one of Elvis's bodyguards. When I got to LA, I took more classes. It was just something I needed to try, something I needed to get out of my system, a mountain I had to climb, unquote. So in 2005, the singer also becomes an actor. First you have an appearance in the movie Hustle and Flow. You're the character Elroy, who had a scene with Terrence Howard, and who was the main character, and who now was obviously a really big name in Hollywood. And you get your third callback to appear on the TNT series Wanted, which starred Gary Cole, who's now one of the main characters on NCIS. After you finished that third audition, you stood up in front of everyone in the studio and you said, quote, I am Rod Grombach. If you hire anyone else for this job, you're an effing fool, unquote. That took a lot of cojones. Did you feel like that was probably your last chance to really make an impact and you had to do it?
Well, yeah, I've had a couple of times in my life where I have thrown the proverbial dice. Like I told you with that phone call earlier, when I told that record company guy from Island Def Jam that we weren't going to come to New York City, that wasn't going to happen. That could have been catastrophic for my career. And you could have, that could have went one of two ways. You could have saw Saliva make it big and out of obscurity, or you could have saw Saliva fade into obscurity. And the same thing could have happened with the acting thing as well. I had just always been such a fan, of actors and actresses, and was lucky enough, like you said, to take classes from Red West, and who became such a dear friend of mine. I was lucky and blessed enough to get to become dear friends with Red, and also Jerry Schilling, another one of Elvis's best friends, and just amazing men that had such great Elvis stories. Red and his son, had amazing Elvis stories that I could listen to that for the rest of my life. Any little breadcrumbs that they had about Elvis were, and about their lives, not just Elvis, but Red, like you said, has had an extraordinary career in all kinds of different Robert Grisham movies, and was in one of my favorite movies of all time, Roadhouse,
I
with
knew you were
Patrick
going to say that
Swayze.
movie. Yeah, I love that movie. It was on the other night.
Yeah, and they're actually remaking that movie. My son told me the other day that they're actually remaking Roadhouse with one of the guys that was in Brokeback Mountain, not Heath Ledger, but the other guy,
Jake
Gyllenhaal. Yeah, he's playing. He's playing Patrick Swayze in the new Roadhouse, which I think is going to be amazing to see. But yeah, I got to go to Red, God rest his soul, used to teach a acting class there in Memphis and Bartlett on Tuesday night and Thursday night. And I was a regular attendee when I was in town. I used to go to his acting class, and this is just a brilliant man, brilliant actor, a brilliant artist, was a hell of a songwriter, wrote several songs for Elvis and different artists as well. And just an amazing, amazing man. And I remember before I left, after I gotten the part on the show, he told me, he goes, just remember, just don't overact, deadpan, and just remember that acting is reacting. Don't just get lost in the words on the page. He said, remember to react to what the person is saying to you, and really become that guy, and make that guy a part of who Josey is, but don't forget to react to what the other actor is saying, which was brilliant advice that I carried with me all through getting to be fortunate enough to act in these different projects. But yeah, I went to the last audition, and it came down to Dave Mustaine from Megadeth and me, and this little homeless looking man that he was like a little chunky looking homeless. I thought he was a homeless guy, but it turns out it was Bobby Elvis, from the guy that played Bobby Elvis on Sons of Anarchy. And he was also in Batman. So when I'm sitting in the theater, like years later, I'm sitting in the theater and going, that's the guy. That's the guy. But I did not know, didn't know his name. But yeah, played Bobby Elvis on the Sons of Anarchy, and is an amazing actor himself. Just a really accomplished, amazing actor. And I cannot believe in 1,000 years that I got that part from him. I've never seen Dave Mustaine act, and I didn't get to see his audition, but I got to meet him at the audition, and me and him sort of became good friends. And we've been in the studio together when we were recording Every 6 Seconds. Megadeth was right next door to us at A&M Studios over in Hollywood. So I got to meet him on 2 different occasions. But yeah, I had just recently, where that comes from is I had recently seen an interview with Jennifer Lopez, and she was up for some part, and it came down to her last audition, and she went in and she said that she goes, she was talking about how these auditions are just the most nerve-wracking thing you've ever been through in your life. And it was, I mean, I was just about to have a nervous breakdown, because I would think I had it, and they'd be like, well, they need you back for another audition. I'd be like, oh God, are you serious? I've got to go through all this again. And then I'd have to go back and I'd audition again. And I thought, it's over with. I got it. I'm going to get it. And then they'd be like, you did great. They're really happy with you. You're going to have to come back again. And I'm like, oh, come on, man, again. And so I knew this was I think the third and final time. And I just took a page out of Jennifer Lopez's book and did exactly what she did at an audition. And I said, look, I made good friends with the people. With the last audition we did, there was a room full of people. It wasn't just like the first audition, it was just a camera and a guy and a clipboard. And you either got through that or you didn't. And I made it through that one. And then the second time I went back, it was a guy, a camera, a clipboard, and a couple of more people. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is the one. And then, of course, found out I had to go back again. Well, this time it was a room full of people. And Jorge Zamacona, the main writer, screenwriter, was there. Gary Cole was there. Rashida Jones was there. Different cast members that were already, had been solidified were there. And I was like, I didn't know who these people were necessarily yet. I knew who Gary was, but I didn't know who Rashida was. This was before Rashida was on like The Office and Parks and Recreation, before she was really famous. And but got to be dear friends with Rashida, who's Quincy Jones' daughter. Once I found out that little goose egg, then I started to pick her brain about Michael Jackson and the whole off the wall Thriller days and all that, because she was about 11 or 12 years old when that was going on in her household. Her daddy, Quincy, was married to Patty Lipton, who was remember the hot blonde chick on, she was on that show. Oh, shoot. It was like the Baywatch of the 70s, but I can't remember the name of the show. But her mother, Patty Lipton, was on a famous like cop show or whatever back in the
Not Charlie's
70s.
Angels, was it?
No, not Charlie's Angels. I can't remember what it was called. I'm gonna kick myself when I remember after we are off this, because I'll remember it. And
of course, that's how it always is.
Yeah, but she was a beautiful blonde bombshell, and then her dad, is this famous, orchestra conductor that's worked with everybody from, Ray Charles to Frank Sinatra for years and years and years and years before he worked with Michael Jackson. But yeah, I got to meet Rashida and spend a lot of good quality time with her and became dear friends. And so when I went to that last audition and there was all those people in there, I knew I had made some friends in that room, and I just felt comfortable enough in my own skin that after I did the scene they wanted me to do, and I practiced it, I was like, dude, when I went back for that third audition, I was like Elvis. I knew their lines, my lines, this guy's lines, everybody's lines, not just my lines. And me and Kendra had practiced it till it was like a conversation. We were off the page, as they say. We weren't even having to look at the lines anymore by the time I went back for the third audition. And then when I got up to leave, I said, look, I just want y'all to know I am Rodney Grombeck. And if you don't hire me, y'all are fucking crazy. Now, what on earth possessed me to say some mess like that? I will never know. But I did. And then, just like getting a record deal, what do you do once you catch the rabbit? I was sitting on I was sitting on the episode. I was sitting on the set of the first episode going, oh shit, now I got to remember this much material instead of this much, instead of memorizing 3 paragraphs, now I got to remember 17 pages of dialogue.
Right.
And one of the cast members who was a new actor, he walked up to me and he goes, man, he goes, you don't live in Hollywood, do you? I said, no, I live back in Memphis. He goes, do you know how many waiters and people, he goes, you know how many people out there waiting tables and working at hotels who've been auditioning for things for years want to kill you right now? And I was like, no, I can imagine, no, but I really had a lot of fun once I settled into my skin and broke the nerves of getting that first episode behind me, and because they took a whole week to film each episode. So I came up and got me and Kendra got our own little apartment. This is before we had children, and we got us an apartment in Studio City and moved to LA for 6 months. And once I got that first episode under my belt, I settled into the character a little more. And if you watch the show, you can see that. You can see, if you know me, like I'm sure you know me, Michael, I'm nervous at first, and then you can see that I kind of settle into the character as the episodes progress. And I think the nervousness played into the character, because the character was, not, he was the type of character who's got this really rough, tough exterior like me, and then you find out he's a big teddy bear like me, and then he is also kind of socially awkward and sensitive like me. So all these things played to my favor, and with that character, thank God, because I think if there'd been anything else expected of me, I don't think I would have been able to tread water with these other Hollywood badasses like Gary Cole and the guy that played Opie was also one of my partners on that show, Ryan Hurst. He was also, he was in Remember the Titans.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
He was, like I said, played Opie in Sons of Anarchy, and has been in several movies since then, and is just a really accomplished, just Shakespearean type actor. And do you know his dad was actually Enos on Dukes of Hazzard?
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he came to the set of the show one day, and I was just tickled to death to meet his dad, because I was a big Dukes of Hazzard fan when I was 12 years old. Of course, when I was 12 years old, Ryan had not been born yet. But
one thing that you said about Red West, I wanted to read this because after he passed away in 2017, it was a really great thing you said. You said, quote, "Sad goodbye to my mentor, teacher, and friend, Red West. He taught me how to love deeply, act naturally, and never get too big for my britches," unquote. I thought that was really a great tribute to him. And like you talked about, the act naturally and don't overact. There's a good example of it right there.
Yeah.
No,
and
go ahead.
he said he was teaching me. He was teaching me all the way up till I was walking out the door. The last time I laid eyes on him, he was teaching me all the way up till to the time that door shut behind me. He was telling me, he said, just keep. He was just saying, just stay calm, son. don't overact. He said, just deadpan. He said, if you're ever nervous, just act like yourself. Just don't try to overdo it. And I just thought it speaks to the great man that he was, that he loved me enough that he was teaching me all the way out the door till he finally let me go and the door shut between us. He was teaching me the whole time. And I just cannot tell you how grateful I am for that moment and those moments with him.
Yeah, you'll have those memories forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Saliva released the hit single "Ladies and Gentlemen" in November of 2006. It went all the way to #2 on the U.S. mainstream, rock charts. And the album "Bloodstained Love Story" came out in January of 2007, and that was the theme song for WrestleMania 23. That wasn't the only time Saliva was involved with WWF, WWE, and I believe that there is a Brent Smith Shinedown connection, here too. Share a little bit about the band's relationship with that wrestling empire.
Well, we had been asked, did we want to, be involved with wrestling with the WWE, and I was like, of course. We're Memphis boys. We grew up with Jerry Lawler and Memphis wrestling and TV5 wrestling, and going to see wrestling matches at Mid-South Coliseum every Monday night. And I remember going down to WMC TV5 in downtown or in Midtown Memphis, going to the studio. I was lucky enough to get to go to the studio a couple of times and actually watch wrestling live when I was like 9 or 10 years old, and just have great memories from that. So I was like, of course, man, we'd love to do whatever, we'd be called upon to do. And we got to meet Jimmy Johnston. Jim Johnston was the main songwriter they had on staff. He was like their music guy. He's retired since then, but Jim Johnston was like the guy that wrote Stone Cold Steve Austin's theme, that you hear glass breaking.
Yeah,
that was all Jim. And we got to sort of show him our wares and show him what we were capable of. And he would give us certain projects. He was like, okay, well, I need y'all to write a song for the Dudley Boys. So I wrote him a song called Get the Tables, about the Dudley Boys, and we would turn that in, and then he would tweak it in some kind of way in the studio, and then next thing you know, it'd be the theme for the Dudley Boys. And then we'd go back and he'd be like, okay, I need y'all to write a theme for Y2J. I need you to write a theme for Jericho. And we, I think we wrote a song called King of My World for Jericho. And then the biggest one he gave us, in my opinion, was the one for Batista's theme. We got to write Batista's theme, which I can't remember the title of that one, but he still uses that one. He used it at the last WrestleMania, and this was 15 20 years ago, and he still comes out. Batista still comes out to the Saliva version of his song, of his theme song. He came out to it at the last WrestleMania they had in 21. So we were, I was really pleasantly surprised and pleased by that. So just getting to go up to Connecticut and go to the WWE offices, and they gave us a big tour, and to see their studios, and just these multi-million-dollar studios that they had, and to get to become such good friends with the McMahon family and get welcomed with open arms by The Rock and Stone Cold and all the different, all the different male and female wrestlers was just a dream come true, and then we got to play WrestleMania 18 and got to play the Sky Dome up in Toronto, Canada, with like 99,000 people there in attendance. This is big freaking enormo dome they have up there called the Sky Dome. And then they had like, I don't know how many million people on pay-per-view watching us that night. And they started WrestleMania with us playing Superstar. And we're the only rock band to have ever had 3 consecutive WrestleMania themes in a row. We had Click Click Boom, and then we had Superstar, and then Click Click Boom, and then Ladies and Gentlemen for themes, 3 consecutive themes at WrestleMania. Only rock band to ever accomplish that feat. So I was pretty proud of that.
It's awesome. You stayed in the band Saliva. You talked about you left at the end of 2010. And I know over the years, you've probably been asked a million times, why did you leave the band and things like that. And a couple of years ago, you said this, quote, "My angel snuggled up to me tonight and said, 'I just love you, Daddy,' and then fell fast asleep. If any of you are wondering why I quit Saliva, that's why," unquote. That pretty much sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah. It does. Around the time that I was thinking about leaving, it was around 2008, 2009. And it was just as much fault. It was just as much my fault as it was anybody else's fault. I'm not one of those people that tends to say, well, it was this one's fault or it was that one's fault, or, I own my part of the dysfunction. And I had just run, Michael, I had just run out of road when it came to what I was there to accomplish, and the gratification that I was extracting from what I was there to do with the band. I was going through a lot of self-inflicted mental illness and a lot of not so self-inflicted mental illness. I think that's what happens to a lot of rock and roll entertainers, or just entertainers in general, is you get out there, and if you don't keep your head on straight, and being kids from Memphis that had never been exposed to what it was like to deal with money or fame or success, or being able to have access to, it's just too much access. It's too much, and access, as you know, turns into excess. And I think, when we were coming out, when they were about to roll us out at Island Def Jam, they sent us to what they called press training, which I thought, at first I made fun of it, and I was like, oh, this is going to be some kind of stupid brainwashing doctrine that they tried, because I'm naturally rebellious. I naturally recoil when you try to tell me what I have to do. So when they said we were going to have to do that, I told the guys, I was like, this is going to be silly, and let's just get through this. This is probably something that they try to do to all their artists, and they're just going to try to indoctrinate us with their point of view and their politics, and we're going to have to, you know, bite the bullet, and you know, we'll just move on. But 10 minutes into this press school, I had a notebook and pen out writing down everything the woman was saying, because it was brilliant. The first thing she did was she walked in the room and she put on a DVD of Britney Spears being interviewed, and the man asked her, was she still a virgin? And she spent 30 minutes answering the question, but never told the man whether or not she was a virgin. She answered perfectly all the way around that question and never really answered it. And, you know, that was, I had never seen anything like that. And they were just teaching us different ways to handle different questions. And they were foreseeing things that we were going to run into that we probably weren't ready for on our little, you know, local or semi-local level. This was more on a global level that they were trying to get us to. And I definitely got a lot out of that. Now, that being said, I think there should also be a class to teach new celebrities or entertainers, if you will, how to deal with money, how to deal with fame, how to deal with drugs and alcohol, how to deal with pressure. And they taught us somewhat how to deal with that. I mean, she taught us breathing exercises that I still do to this day. Before I do an interview, especially if it's going to be on camera or on television, she taught us this breathing exercise where you take a deep breath and you breathe in and you hold it, and then you spit it out and go. Then you do it again, and it causes, I call it nature's Valium. It just calms you down. I don't know what it is about. I mean, Buddhists talk about taking that deep breath. They talk about the in breath and the out breath being bringing your mind home to your body. Things like that. Those are fundamentals that she taught us that I still use to this day. But I just wish they had went further, and I think they would save a lot of lives. Like your Scott Weiland's or Lane Staley's, or you know, not picking on them, but people like that are in that situation that have issues with drugs or alcohol. Maybe if they had known earlier that there was some kind of way that they could have dealt with that, or had somewhere else to reach out for help with that, maybe it would have helped them, maybe it wouldn't have helped them. But I would just sure like it if I was going to send my child into that situation. I would want them to have some more knowledge. You know, if they were willing to spend the time to teach us how to deal with the press, I think they should have been willing to spend the time to teach us how to deal with other pressures and things that were going to come for, I mean, it literally comes for your life. Yeah. You know, because something that started out fun, and you sort of explain it away to yourself, and you're like, well, I'm just having fun, you know, I'm just partying, I'm just having fun, I'm doing what everybody else is doing, you know. And then you go from there to, well, you know, we're only working for 2 hours. You know, I do this really exhilarating thing for 2 hours a day. It's like being shot out of a rocket. And then I have 22 hours to fill with, you know, sleep or press or whatever else, or eating or sleeping or whatever else I'm doing. I wish there was something else to teach. There would have been something else to teach us how to deal with that downtime. Because Peter Criss said in his book that he didn't know what to do with those other 22 hours. And he began to feel them, you know, when as human beings, if we're not taught the right thing to do or the healthy thing to do, then we'll do the wrong thing. We will instinctively, as human beings, we'll start to fill those hours with the wrong thing. As my grandma would say, idle time is the devil's playground. You know what I mean? And I think that's what I began to do, is I began to fill those hours with unhealthy choices and things that would have been better had I not done them in the first place. And you know, if I had it to do over again, which, you know, hindsight's 2020, but if I had it to do over again, I would have never touched drugs or alcohol. And I tell people, you know, people ask me all the time, what's the one piece of advice that you'd give up and comers? And I tell every one of them, just don't touch drugs. Don't, if I had it to do over, I wouldn't touch drugs and alcohol, because the people that really outlast this life, there's a few exceptions, you know, that aren't the rule, like Keith Richards and Willie Nelson, and you know, there's exceptions, but there's not many, you know. And you know, sometimes I think about Eddie Vedder. My heart just breaks for Eddie Vedder, because what he must feel like to be the only singer to have survived the grunge scene, the only singer. They're all dead, Michael.
I never thought about that or realized that.
Yeah, all of them are dead. Every one of them. Now, it wasn't drugs or alcohol that took every one of them, but it does not change the fact that Eddie Vedder is the last man standing, bro.
Wow.
He is the last man standing out of the entire grunge scene. And what that must feel like to him, to watch all of his friends and family members die. You know, and death is so final. And it's just heartbreaking to me what it must feel like to him to be that last guy from that scene.
You know, you've brought up a few things that you've talked about today that I always like to talk about, the power of a moment, how one moment in time can just change everything for you. And go back to the time that you're on top of the Empire State Building and you talked about your mom in the bathroom. That one moment changed your life. The next one, when you're about to, you're in conversations on the telephone with Island Def Jam, and they tell you they want you to come up there, and you're like, and you're just, no, you got to come here. And that changed everything for you, you know, and getting up and, you know, and the audition, you know, wanted, you know, you took a chance. Being in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the place you were, the time you were, the woman that you met, that you now are spending the rest of your life with, that you have 3 children with, the power of a moment. It's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, it has been. I've been so blessed and so grateful to have been a witness to those moments. And, you know, I think that lets me know that something bigger than myself is looking over my shoulder and sort of watching over me, you know. And like you said, I definitely believe in angels or something larger than myself looking after this life, you know, because like they say, I don't think we're humans having a spiritual experience. I think we're spirits having a human experience.
You know, it's my dad passed away 9.5 years ago, and I feel his presence all the time. So I know that he's my angel, and I can guarantee you for the last 25 years since your dad passed away, he's been there right with you and been your angel too. And it's just so powerful. And it just feels good knowing that even though they're not here in the physical world, we can still feel their presence.
Yeah, when my son passed in May of 21 of COVID, it's the most horrific thing any parent can ever go through. And I, I remember saying to my wife, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. Um, you know, I went at the time it happened. I was so heartbroken and I was just reeling, and I didn't know what to do or where to turn. And I remember um, anytime I don't understand something or I don't know the definition to something, I will look at my wife and say, off to Google, And when that happened, I went to Google and just typed in death of a child, and I hit enter, and it just popped up in big letters and said the ultimate tragedy.
Mm, mm, mm.
And I think that sums it up. um, I don't think it gets much worse than that. Besides losing my spouse, of course, I don't think it gets any worse than that. And I used to be so I grew up in the southern way of fear of hell and all that, and that was really a big deal in my household and in my life. And now I'm not as afraid of that because I've been through hell and I know what hell feels like. So it's not something I would wish, like I said, on my worst enemy. But to make our way around to the original point, my friend Tony West that I mentioned earlier, he's a singer out in Los Angeles of a band called Blacklist Union, and he came out immediately and went to Cody's life celebration service, and was there with me, like a lot of my friends. Blaine McGee and Chris Dabaldo was there as well. A lot of my friends came out and were very supportive of me and Cody's family, and just having them, uh, beside me and Kendra, I don't think we would have made it had we not had the support of our family and friends at that time. But Tony said specifically, he said, you're going to see in the near future, you're going to see lots of red birds and you're going to see lots of butterflies. And I said, what are you talking about, man? He goes, just trust me. And I'll be damned if I have not seen, like, every day, Michael, just all kinds of beautiful red birds. And I don't know why it's red birds, but and beautiful butterflies of all kinds, huge monarch butterflies and yellow butterflies, and just all different multicolored butterflies I've seen on a daily basis. And I know that it's Cody letting me know that everything's all right. And I didn't even want to because we were talking about possibly coming back around the time that happened, and I thought it was the universe or God telling me that I didn't need to do music, or I shouldn't do music or something like that. But not too long after that, I had a dream that I was laying on, and I haven't dreamed for a long time, which even like further led me to believe that maybe it was a bad thing to let me know not to be involved in music anymore. But I had a dream that I was laying on the canvas of a ring, like in a WWE or a boxing ring. And I was laying on the mat and I felt blood coming out of my mouth and my nose, and my whole face was hurting and felt like it was swollen up and everything. And I kept trying to touch my face and look at my hands because I thought I just felt blood coming out of my nose and mouth. But I couldn't move. I couldn't get up. And I felt somebody reach behind me and grab horse collar me like that and pull me backwards. And then I felt somebody come down into my ear, and I heard clearly, I heard Cody's voice saying, "Dad, you got to get up. You got to get up." And then I was like, "That's not Cody." And then he goes, "Come on, Pops. Come on, Pops." And he was the only child that calls me Pops. And he said, "Come on, Pops, you've got to get up. You've got to get up. Please get up. You got to get up, Pops. Come on. Come on, Pops, get up." And I started to get up, and I tried to turn and look at him, and I woke up. But I knew from that moment forward, I knew Cody was trying to tell me to get up. He was trying to tell me that I needed to get up off the ground one more time and fight. And I needed to get back in the ring and fight. And that's what this is all about to me. That's what, coming back and doing music is all about for me. It's all about Cody.
Quote, "Date night was a banger. Took my baby to Poison at the Box Center. Got up in front of said love of my life and sang nothing but a good time in front of 18,000 people with Bret Michaels. So I'd call it a huge, freaking, overwhelming double barrel buckshot success." Unquote. You had the chance to be on stage, in front of a huge crowd, and obviously then you played again. I believe that you and Brett Scallions went out and played together and sang, Brett Scallions of the band Fuel. And then you got on stage again at Rocklahoma and sang Simple Man with Shinedown and Jelly Roll. And, those shows had to be, I mean, I know you have a special relationship with Zach Myers from, the Memphis connection there. Those times just had to be pretty special the last several months.
Yeah. I mean, I think like Elvis said, you think, or like a lot of artists have said that have taken time away or taken time off. I think my biggest fear was my voice still going to be there? Was I still going to know how to move? Was I still going to have it? That thing, was it still going to be there? And getting to be lucky and blessed enough to get up there and sing with Brett from Poison and Brent from Shinedown and Jelly Roll and Brett Scallions, and seems to be Brett's. I'm always on stage with Brent's and Brett's. But yeah, Jelly Roll's such a cool guy, and he reminded me a lot of my son Cody, because Cody's a big guy like Jelly Roll, and seeing the time that Jelly Roll took with my son Justice, because Justice was really just freaked out to meet Jelly Roll, and seeing him sort of step to the side beyond his security guys and really take the time with Justice to encourage him about his own art and spend time with him one-on-one really touched my heart in a special way. And, getting to get up there and be reminded that people do still know who you are, and they do remember you, and they haven't forgotten you, and they still remember your songs, and you're still somewhat relevant, and you do still have your voice, and you still got your talent and your moves and these gifts, these things that are beyond Joseph Sappington, the things that are more things that I've been blessed with that aren't from me, but through me, like Elvis said. It's just I feel like the luckiest, most blessed man in the world. And to get to have it on a date night like that, that's why I just had to give a shout out to my baby, because that was our only date night. With the house full of kids, you only get a date night every once in a while. So to get to do that in front of her was a big deal. So I was really proud of that.
Josey, you reunited with Saliva for one show at the Blue Ridge Music Festival recently. You played in front of 160,000 friggin' people. I saw the picture from behind. Oh my gosh. And you said two things I must share. Quote, just like flying, unquote. And quote, sometimes in life, you just got to stop, breathe, and enjoy the view, unquote. That must have just been an unbelievable experience, that many people.
Yeah. I think you can never, as much as back in the day when I was on tour with Saliva, I tried to remember those moments when I was in front of thousands of people like that. I think you do it so much, and me being so young and so clouded with other things that like I said were some self-inflicted wounds that I had done myself that nobody is responsible for but me. Not being able to remember it the way it happened, was something that I did, that I took those moments for granted back then, and getting a chance to do it again and be clear-headed like I am now, and getting to do it as the husband and father that I am now, and getting to appreciate it for what it is, with a clear mind and a clear head and a clear heart is just really something that I couldn't, something that I will never deserve and never take for granted again, because it is just like flying. I've had dreams back in the day about flying, and that's what it feels like being in front of that many people and feeling that energy. Like Paul Stanley says in his book, it just blows you backwards.
And believe it or not, looking at that picture from behind of you in that crowd, I felt it. I mean, I was like, oh my God, it just, you feel it just looking at the picture. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. It was crazy.
Quote, I'm the luckiest man, most blessed man alive. This woman is every dream I've ever dreamed as a little boy and as a young man come true a million times. She is so beautiful, kind, sweet, compassionate, inside and out. She's always got my back and would never let a soul hurt me or take advantage of me. And she knows I got her 100% the same. She is my ride or die for the whole ride of this thing we call life. And I'm just so proud to call her the queen of my castle and kingdom. What did I ever do to deserve such a woman as breathtakingly spectacular as this? Unquote. Of course, you're speaking of your wife, Kendra there, and she said of you, quote, I want to say a huge thank you to this guy right here. Last week was a full band rehearsals, radio interviews, getting ready for his first show in 11 years, lots of exciting things. While doing all those things, he has been my personal nurse, Uber driver, chef, and managed to take care of the kids. To say that I am blessed is the biggest understatement ever. I love you so much, Joe. Super excited to continue life with you, unquote. Josey, you guys have been together now, I believe over 19 years, and you're married now for 18. It seems that you've figured out now how to balance life, music, family, and you figured out what's most important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. You gonna get me in my feelings, dude. Yeah, I don't know what I ever did to deserve that woman, but I am absolutely the luckiest, most blessed man alive. She's my rock. She's everything to me. She is absolutely everything to me. And I just feel lucky and blessed to have her.
And I mean, she feels the same.
Yeah.
It's okay to be emotional, man. It's just being real. It's okay. I've had several people on podcasts be emotional. It's okay. Promise. Your children that you talked about earlier, Justice, Jolie, Jordan, I believe, Dylan, and your fur child, Jackson. And of course you talked about Cody, and a few things that you've said and shared about them are, quote, "Happy birthday to my little man, Justice. I love you so much, son. So proud of the man you're becoming." Quote, "My sweet little angel from heaven. Jolie is so precious and sweet. What a beauty." Jordan, you said, "Everybody needs a superhero. She's mine. Wonder Woman, light of my life, my sweet Jordy." And about Dylan, you said, quote, "My handsome son, Dylan, and my new guitar player." Just tell us a little bit more about them and the life that, what they brought to you and your Kendra's life.
Well, when me and Kendra got together in 2003, and were dating, and then got married in 2004, a year later, she had 2 children from a previous marriage. Her first child, Brittany, is 2 years older than Dylan, and then Dylan, who's 25 now, is my rhythm guitar player. I got to be fortunate enough to be in their lives when they were 3 and 4 years old growing up. So I've been in their lives since they were little bitty, and I tell people they're mine. I paid for them. But but I don't, my life would not have been the same without them. I couldn't imagine my life without them. Even though they're older now and Brittany's married and we don't see as much of her anymore, she's still my baby girl, and I love her so much. And Dylan has just been an amazing presence in my life and has always encouraged me to get back to playing music. And even when I didn't want to, was like, "Come on, let's go jam together," and I'll be like, "Oh, okay," and even when I was on the road with Saliva back in 2008, I heard that Dylan was starting to play Guitar Hero, and I was like, he's gonna be a musician.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, he was playing bass, and I told Kendra, I said, every bass player is a frustrated guitar player. And the next thing you know, he was playing guitar. So when I left the band in 2011, and then up to the time we moved here in 2016, 17, he's been encouraging me to get back to jamming and playing. And Justice is just, we call him Little Eddie Trunk, because he is the rock and roll historian in the family. He knows everything about every band and knows who played bass on, you know, Incubus's third record and where, and just
Wow.
every bit of knowledge. And at the Poison show, or actually at the Shinedown Jelly Roll show, Eddie Trunk was there and Justice was there. So Kendra said, I've got to introduce you to my son, Justice. And we call him Little Eddie Trunk. And Eddie Trunk goes, well, I've got to meet this guy. And so we bring Eddie Trunk over and to meet Justice. And then we took a picture of them together. That was just a magical moment because we literally call him Little Eddie Trunk because he's so good at any kind of rock and roll trivia. He knows a lot more than I will ever remember about rock and roll. And now Jordan is our little miracle baby. She was born. Part of the reason that I left the band too was when Jordan was born in Nashville, they told us that she was probably not going to make it because she was born with she had aspirated some fluid into her lungs, and they thought she had anyway, and they thought she was bleeding inside of her lungs, and she got pneumonia, and she was in the NICU for like 8 weeks, you know, over 2 months. She was in the NICU, and they told us when she was first born, they said, you know, you need to go spend some time with your daughter. We don't know if she's going to make it, because if she takes any more of a turn, there's really nothing we can do outside of keeping her comfortable until she, you know, God forbid, passes. And, you know, so we call her our little miracle because she did a complete turnaround and survived. She's our little survivor. And she, just like her brother Cody, she's a big hip hop fan, and she's already named herself. She's a rapper. She's called Lil Bridge. And so she's already writing her own raps at 11 years old and everything. And she's definitely got the musician's bug. And so does Justice. I mean, Justice plays bass and also wants to be an actor, and already has an agent, and he's going on auditions and things like that. And Jolie she's like an amalgamation of all of it. She's just as good a singer as me, if not better. She's just as good at writing music than me, if not better. She is just as good an actor, if not better. She's every little, all of the good things that her mother is, just kind-hearted, good, solid, honest, thoughtful, caring, wonderful, golden-hearted little woman, just like her mother. She's all the best of me and all the best of her mother melted into one person. And she's talented like me, and beautiful and kind and thoughtful like her mother. So yeah, they're all just really special kids and in their own ways.
You know, Cody would have been 31 on August 29th, and you wrote something really special to him. And if you're not comfortable with me reading it, I won't at all. It's something on Facebook that you posted when you were saying happy birthday to him, and I'll totally understand if you're not. But if you are, I'd like to read it because it was really special.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Happy heavenly 31st birthday to my sweet, beautiful baby boy, Cody Cheyenne Scott Sappington, my firstborn son, my first baby. I had Cody in 1991 when I was only 18. He was so beautiful and perfect from day one. Such a good baby and sweet little boy and an amazing man. I only got to enjoy him and love him for 29 years, 8 months, and 23 days, almost 11,000 days. And believe me, they went by in a flash. I miss him every single day of my life. This is a heartbreak that I never thought I would ever know, that cannot be cured, only endured every minute since he's been gone. Losing a child has truly taught me a lot of things: to cherish time, to love my loved ones, to love my friends, to love my fans, even to love and pray for my enemies, because believe me when I say I wouldn't wish this heartbreak on any of them. It is a ferocious hurt and pain that I feel all the time, every second, every minute. Yet I wouldn't trade it for the world, because I was chosen by God to get to have Cody, get to love Cody, to spend time with Cody, to hold him, to kiss him, hug him every single chance I got. You cannot have one without the other, and I wouldn't trade that time for anything. I can still smell his hair, hear his voice, feel his presence. He was so sweet and so kind and so loving and so very gentle. He would say that I taught him things, but he taught me more than I ever taught him. I love you, Cody. Happy 31st birthday, baby boy. We'll see you soon in that beautiful city that knows no heartbreak, right where you are, my sweet prince. See you on the other side. I love you. Your adoring daddy, Pops. Just really special. And I just wanted to share that with everybody. So you're coming back, Josey. You said, quote, I just can't wait to feel that feeling and connection that can only come from the stage, that only fans of my music can deliver, unquote. The Josey Scott Outlaw tour, you're about to go back on stage, this week for the first time, really, out on your own in 11 years, starting with the show this Saturday night here in Memphis on October 22nd at Growlers. And opening acts are EMN and Todd Poole's band Roxy Blue. And you guys, go way back, obviously, to your Saliva days together and have a really special relationship. And I can't wait to see you guys play on the same night together. Since I've never played music on stage before, I can't, once again, I saw that picture and felt it, but I really can't imagine the energy and the excitement that, must be inside of you right now to get out there again and to start with your hometown Memphis. Has to make it even more special. What is that feeling inside of you right now?
I think there's something that only Memphis can give me, because of Cody and because of the connection there with the fans, and that being where it all began. And a lot of the songs that I'm playing, I'm going to run the gamut all the way back to, I'm going to try to do sort of like this interview. I'm going to take people from 1997 all the way to now. I call it the evolution of Josey Scott.
I like that.
But I just think there's something that I'm desperate to get back to that, because I was in the studio here recently with a famous Memphis producer named Malcolm Springer, who's been a big part of my life. And I was in the studio with him at Nashville, and I was writing some new material, and I was actually about to write Evel Knievel, my new single. And I was having a panic attack, and I called my wife, and I just started freaking out, and I was just like, I just don't know if I can do this. I don't understand. I feel like I just feel like I'm over my head, and maybe I didn't make the right choice. And she said, stop it. You belong there. You belong there. And So I cried and told her I loved her and got off the phone. And then I went back in, and Kendra said, Malcolm wants to talk to you. Go back in there and talk to Malcolm. And I went back in, and Malcolm said, put that damn phone down, boy. And I put the phone down, and he goes, where is that guy from 1997 that was walking around with his little backpack on and his little green notebook under his arm with his little pen sticking out of his notebook that used to write lyrics all the time? Where's that guy? I want to know when that guy's going to show up. And I was just standing there like with my eyes must have been like as big as saucers, and my mouth is just gaping open. And I'm just like, okay, just calm down. You know what I mean? He goes, well, I want to know, I'm sorry, but I want to know where the hell that guy is. And it was just hearing Kendra say what she said and hearing him say what he said shocked my system enough that it was like a spiritual experience. It was like a refilling of this spirit of music that I had. And in 5 minutes, in 5 minutes, I wrote Evel Knievel, Lock, Stock, and Barrel, the whole thing right there. And next thing you know, I had my confidence back. I had my focus back. I knew exactly where I wanted to go and exactly what I wanted to do and exactly how I was going to get there. You know, it's one thing to know that you can get from A to B, but knowing how you're going to get there, you know, you can have the talent or experience all day long and not know how to use it and be screwed. And I needed to know how to use it again. And once Malcolm shocked my system like that, I'd call it like a refilling of this spirit of music all over again. And now I've been totally focused on what, why, where, when, and how.
I go back once again, the power of a moment. You know, in that moment, the most important person in your life on the phone with you and the most important person in front of you at the time, both, you know, got you to get your head out of your butt and, you know, and find yourself again because they knew what was inside of you and what you could do.
Well, yeah. And, you know, it happened at Blue Ridge Music Festival too, because, you know, I had only done a couple of shows leading up to that point. And, you know, I was nervous seeing Bobby for the first time, the new singer of Saliva. I had forced myself not to see or listen to Bobby before then because it's just too painful. It's just painful memories. And, you know, I was already going through, you know, everything that I was going through in my family life. And I just didn't have the strength, I guess, to deal with that. And I was dealing with that day. That was sort of the put up or shut up time to meeting Bobby face to face, seeing him on stage with Wayne and, you know, facing that big fear that I had. And, you know, I started to trip a little bit backstage, and my wife just took my hands and held them up next to her, and she looked up at me and she said, "What did I say when you were in Nashville?" I said, "You said I belong here." She said, "You belong here. You belong here." And just hearing the person that you love more than anything in this whole world telling you and giving you the confidence. And it's like when it's like in Rocky 3 when Rocky wasn't going to fight anymore.
The beach scene.
Yeah, the beach scene. and his wife finally tells him, I don't know what's going to happen either. Maybe everything's going to happen. Maybe nothing's going to happen. I'm scared too. But, you've got to do this. You've got to take this journey. And not only do you have to take this journey, but you belong here. I told Kendra I want to get a big tattoo that says you belong here.
Yeah. I can quote that movie, Scary. I've seen that movie so many times, that Rocky 3. I can quote it. I can do Clubber Lang perfectly in that movie. So yeah, it's scary, but I knew exactly what you're talking about as soon as you said it. It hit home. Yeah. So that's awesome.
I love those movies.
Me too. Everything but Rocky 5. Rocky 5 was just, he missed there. He even admitted it. The one with Tommy Gunn. He said, I missed that one, but I love the Creed movies.
Yeah. And I love the one where he has the little speech with his son.
Oh, Rocky Balboa. Yeah. In 2006.
Yeah. Where he has the speech. Oh,
it ain't about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
How much you can take and keep moving forward. Yeah.
That's right. And when he says, oh man, I can't say it without crying, but when he says, watching you do what you do is what cowards do, and that ain't you. And he screams it at him,
Yeah.
Whew.
Yep.
Great. We're crying over a Rocky movie.
You can't see it, but on the wall to the side of me here, I have every Rocky poster, every single movie on the wall. So I'm a humongous Rocky buff. Yeah, huge.
No way. That's awesome, brother.
Yeah, every poster. It's not behind me, but it's over on the wall, over on this side over here. There's all over that wall. Let's see if I can just change it.
Oh, dope.
Yeah.
Even though so
actually it looks like a fight poster that they made up, a fight poster of the original Rocky with Apollo Creed, and it made it look like a real fight. So it's pretty cool.
That is awesome, bro.
Get this on here without falling down. There we go. Those movies are movies. So they have such a great message.
Yes, they do.
Great message. What are the most important lessons that you believe that you learned in life?
To keep my heart clean, to keep my mind clear, and to not waste a single day on anger or falling prey to the unloving side of life, to be slow to anger, as they say, quick to forgive, and to love hard. Just love hard.
How can people find you and follow you online, for social media for your music?
Josey Scott Music is my Twitter, and Josey Scott at Josey Scott on Instagram, and Outlaw Josey Scott on Facebook. And I'm gonna be doing some stuff with YouTube pretty soon, and I'm putting together. I'm in the final stages of a recording contract right now that I really can't say much about, but
right.
I'm putting the final touches on that, and excited to record a new record and get back out there on the road and start playing for folks again. And I just can't wait to play Memphis Saturday night.
Yeah, and I'll say to everybody, don't forget the Saturday night, October 22nd, here in Memphis, 98.1 The Max presents Rockaween at Growlers with Josey Scott, opening acts Roxy, Blue, and EMN. Growlers is located at 1911 Poplar Avenue. The show starts at 7 p.m. and you can get tickets by going to Josey, Josey, Scott.com. And click on tour, and then scroll down to Memphis, and you'll see right next to it where it says buy tickets. I can't wait for the show and see you and Todd perform, live after so many years. And, Josey, we talked, before we came on, we've known each other, for over 20 years now. And I was telling you, remembering those nights, getting limos on Monday nights back in the early 2000s and going out to dinner, heading down to Beale Street to Alfred's. And it was, you and DJ Paul and me and Jacob and several of our friends, listening to you sing as you talked about, Prince and singing Elvis up on stage. And those are some great memories. I'm so excited for you and your comeback. And I know that you're obviously doing everything that you're doing now, and doing it for a different reason, and that's what's really great too, is it's different obviously now. And so that makes such a difference when you get up on stage and how you feel about everything and the crowd and the people. And I think it's just going to be great. And, you're one of the most talented vocalists I've ever heard. And, I used to own a live music bar. I heard a lot of people, including Brett Scallions, played in my bar back in February of '98 when Fuel played there.
Oh, wow.
And it's so great to hear, that you're going to be able to, share your voice out there again. And I know you're really super busy getting ready for the tour, and I'm just so awesome to have you here. This has been the longest podcast I've done so far, but every minute of it has been worth it, hearing those stories.
Well, thank you, Michael. Every minute has been worth it for me too. And it's good to see you again, and look forward to seeing you in Memphis, and look forward to seeing everybody else in Memphis. And it's going to be a great hometown show, a great homecoming. Memphis Halloween on October 22nd at Growlers. And I'm so blessed and grateful to have EMN and Roxy Blue playing that show with Todd Poole. I can't wait to see him and the rest of the guys, Rick Rule and all those guys. Just looking forward to the show, man.
Me too, buddy. I will see you this weekend.
All right.
Thanks, Josey.
Yes, sir.